What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Just got a text message as I was clicking the go live button, muting my phone right now so we don't have more beeping and blaring going on in the background. Lot of baseball to talk about today. Huge slates on both sites, 11 games on FanDuel, a dozen games on DraftKings. Should be a good one. Welcome to a Friday show. Anthony Taylor's here. Happy Friday to you too, buddy. Few other people hanging out. I'm sure we'll get some more people coming through in the next little bit. Say hello when you jump in. Always better when the chat is rolling, when we're getting discussion, questions, jokes, comments, insults, whatever you want. Drop it in. Just no politics. It's the only thing. No religion, no politics. Keep that stuff to yourselves. But hopefully everybody's doing well, ending your weeks at work. Hopefully you're done punching out, heading over to happy hour, getting your lineups together for a really good-looking baseball slate. Quick note, the Red Sox and Orioles are playing game one of their doubleheader. That game two is on the DraftKings slate. That's the one that's different. Just if you're making lineups and then not going to be tuning in or paying attention to anything else and you're determined to play the Red Sox, Alex Bregman just came out of the game with an injury, so he's probably not going to be in the game two lineup for the Red Sox. So just keep that in mind. But a lot to talk about. Could be Travis is here. Travis has been killing it, as he said. Whoops, clicked on the wrong one. As he says, been crushing it this week. Thanks for the projections. Hey, congrats, buddy. I don't know if you were here yesterday, but I shouted out your awesome results from this last couple of weeks. I know you took down first place. What was that? 2 days ago? Second place. Second for grand in one, second for three in another one. So congrats, buddy. That's great to see. Love it. And those are the results that any of you guys can achieve with the Roto Scouts projections. Trav has been a long-time member and a long-time supporter. Really appreciate it and love seeing you guys succeed. Whether it's your first day here, whether you've been with us from the jump or going back to the Awesome-O days, I just love seeing when you guys succeed. So that's awesome to hear, buddy. And let's keep it up. Let's get some other winners on the board. Always, always, always jump into Discord. Share those screenshots when you guys win because, look, it's really difficult to win at baseball, so it is very nice to see when they come through, and it makes my days better when I'm not winning. So I love seeing that. Discord link is in the description for this video. Discord's always free. All the projections, access for baseball, basketball, and hockey, all in under $1 a day for everything. No per sport fees. Check it out at rotoscouts.com. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Let's dive on in because we got a lot to get through. Kenny Woodhouse, Cujo, what's going on, guys? Good to see you. Let's do this. This is our pitching board, which has not been sorted yet. It is I'll say deep pitching slate with a lot of pretty big question marks on a lot of those depth guys. But anytime we've got 22 pitchers on one side, 24 on the other side, and a lot of guys fairly priced through the mid-range, there's obviously going to be a ton to work with. But we've got some huge spots showing for offense, not the least of which is the New York Yankees in Coors Field. Had to get in there and to not have Aaron Judge approaching a 30 in the home run model, 3 times the magic number, which I feel like was a little bit exaggerated, but I left him enough to be double the magic number in Coors Field. A lot of other Yankees with 7+ total looking pretty good in that one. Tanner Gordon at the bottom of the board here, not a pitcher we're going to be considering, but there are plenty of other spots for offense, so it's not all about the Yanks in Coors Field today. Let's get into some of the game by the Vegas board. Blue Jays and the Rays, a 9-run total in that one. That is an appealing spot for offense with the Rays drawing down against Eric Lauer. Blue Jays facing Drew Rasmussen, a little bit more talented of a pitcher there, but they're drawing a 4.26 implied total for their side, 4.84 on the Rays. Definitely a game where we can consider some offense on either side. The game 2 of the Orioles Red Sox right now, 4.50 implied total for the O's, 5.10 for the Red Sox. Sox will be going up against Charlie Morton by all accounts, at least as of the last time I checked. Let me double check that because it was a TBD at one point. Still says Charlie. We'll see what happens. But that game, again, only available on DraftKings. Obviously, the Sox looking pretty solid in that one. But the Orioles, despite their slumps, going up against Lucas Giolito, it is a somewhat gettable spot with the condition that he's been in right now. So we'll at least talk through some Orioles bats. Big one in Queens, the Dodgers against the Mets. Dodgers are drawing a lot of power upside because they're facing Griff Canning, and the model's got a very long memory, but Canning's been good this year. He has run into some home run bumps, though. He's given up 6 home runs over 9 starts, 47 and a third innings to 198 hitters. There is definitely going to be power on the board for the Dodgers. But you can see a 4.32 implied total right in the middle of the board, not exactly exploding through the top because, again, Canning has been respectable this year. And then it's start number 2 of the season for Clay Kershaw. We got 4 in the first outing. He gave up 5 earned. It was a little bit bumpy in his return to action, facing an excellent Mets lineup with probably a restriction of about 5. I don't think we're going to Clay Kershaw. We'll probably consider some Mets, but a 4.27 implied total is at least somewhat respecting what Clay Kershaw once was. Guardians and the Tigers. Interesting spot here. The Tigers pulling a mid-board total at 4.41. They're going up against Slade Ciccone, who is eminently gettable. I like the Tigers for some upside today. One of the best lineups in baseball this season. Tons of power. A lot of power showing in the home run model. The home run pick of the day comes from the Detroit Tigers. We'll get there, but I really like the upside for them. And then Cleveland's a playable enough lineup going up against Jackson Jobe, who's been a little bit up and down. So we'll talk through probably just bats in that one. I don't know that we're going to need to go to Jobe. We'll at least consider them. It's going to depend on the price. Padres at the Braves. The return, the other big piece of news, the return of Ronald Acuna Jr. Love it. This is going to be the big inflection point for this Braves lineup. Everything is going to turn around. 4.29 implied total. Love the power. He adds to the top of that lineup. So now it's not just the trio of guys who are always getting the great numbers in the home run model. Now it's 4 of them. All 4 of those guys are above the magic number at the top of the lineup this evening. Love the look of the Braves. They're going up against a decent pitcher, though. I mean, Nick Pivetta, no slouch on the mound, but I like the upside for Atlanta bats and definitely like the upside for their pitcher. It's Chris Sale on the bump. 7 very solid innings, 8 strikeouts in his last one. Gave up 2 earned runs in the start before that, but still struck out 8 over 5 2/3 against Pittsburgh. It was, if I remember correctly, the runs came early, so it was like an kind of a spot, and then he completely normalized it and was fine. He's given us depth. He's given us Ks. Looks tremendous, even against the stingy Padres lineup. 3.29 implied total kind of tells you that story. The Rangers, drawing a pretty juicy total for a team that really has problems scoring runs. They're facing Sean Burke. He's pretty gettable. I don't mind some Rangers bats. A 4.66 implied total is obviously going to push some upside in their direction, but they've been wildly unreliable. They're still missing one of their best hitter overall in Corey Seager. I don't love it, but they're going to be in play. 3.44 implied total for the White Sox, one of the worst lineups in baseball, going up against Tyler Mahle, who's been pitching pretty effectively so far this season. 1 earned run allowed in each of his last 2 earned runs to start before that, just 1 before that. So mid-board strikeout option, but should see a bump from face on the White Sox. Probably going to be a little popular, though. 3.44 implied total is pretty low on this board. The Royals. The Royals are drawing a really low total for their quality. I know some of those guys have underperformed. I know their run creation has been down. 7.5 run total overall in this game, but just 3.21 coming down on the Royals side. Pretty low. There are bats we like better than that, but Pablo Lopez on the mound for Minnesota is a very good pitcher. So maybe a little bit of a both-sided situation where some low-owned, sneakier Royals in small shares might be worth at least exploring. And then Noah Cameron making his 3rd start. He's given a 6 1/3 in each of his first 2. 1 run allowed over those 12 2/3 innings to St. Louis and Tampa Bay. He's only struck out 3 in each game. He walked 5 in the first one, but none in the second one. It's an interesting pitcher. I don't think he's off the board, but a 4.39 implied total on the Minnesota side, obviously at least somewhat daunting. Mariners and the Astros, 4.11 implied total for Seattle. They're going up against Ryan Gusto, who has been working in a hybrid role. A few starts in here, a few appearances in relief. Bulk relief work for the most part, but had a 2/3 of an inning game where he gave up 3 unearned runs against Chicago 3 appearances ago. Last time out was just an inning in relief. Appearance before that was just 2 1/3 against Kansas City. He gave up 7 earned runs against 18 hitters, but that was a full-fledged start. Just wasn't very good. Prior to that, he had been pretty good throughout the season. So we'll see what we get with Gusto, but we're going to at least talk that part through, going up against a Seattle team that is good at scoring runs, does have power, but also has some strikeouts. And then the Astros bats are drawn against Emerson Hancock, and we definitely like that spot. But they also are without their very best hitter, so a little bit of a compromised lineup overall. The Diamondbacks, I like that team too. They're showing a lot of fantasy quality today. They're going up against a contact-oriented pitcher in Miles Michaelis. He's given up 19 earned runs over 45 and a third this season, 27 strikeouts against just 15 walks. So not a high-end pitcher, extremely high-end lineup. They're pulling a mid-fours total that I'm surprised is not over 5. 4.48 feels a little low. So I definitely want to get into some Diamondbacks. I'm hoping maybe they don't get as popular as I think they ought to be. And then Zach Gallen, the erratic, unreliable, incredibly frustrating Zach Gallen, going up against the Cardinals lineup that is always targetable. 4.12 implied total for them. The Yankees, 7.30 implied total at Coors Field. It's Tanner Gordon on the bump for the Rocks. You're not considering him. You're taking Yankees bats. And then it's Clark Schmidt on the mound for the Yanks. The Rockies have been pretty gettable even in home games this season. They're off to the worst 50-game start in Major League history. Schmidt's at least on the board. He's given us 6 in each of the last 3 outings. There's no real concerns about Aaron Boone style short outings here. So at least playable, but not great and not exactly seeing a discount price-wise at Coors Field. Marlins, Angels, 3.64 implied total for the Marlins going up against Yusei Kikuchi. I like his upside today, but he is a vulnerable pitcher. He tends to make mistakes, and those mistakes tend to get hit pretty hard. But he also, when he's going right, has a lot of strikeout stuff. I'm with Vegas on this one. 3.65 implied total. I think that Kikuchi's pretty playable here. 4.45 for the Angels bats going up against what remains of Sandy Alcantara, let's say. 5 innings in his last start, 4 earned runs, 5 2/3, 4 earned runs the start before that, 5 earned runs over 5 innings against the Dodgers the start before that one. Strikeouts have been down outside of 1 8 strikeout game that was against the White Sox, so I don't really know if that counts. Difficult spot for Sandy. They're just letting him go out there and get stretched out and pitch, and results be damned because they want to trade him at some point. And then the last game up, Zach Wheeler pitching in that minor league stadium in Sacramento. 4.04 implied total for the Athletics. Maybe some one-offs. I don't love targeting Zach Wheeler. He's just too good. One of the best pitchers in the league, pulling a pretty decent total for his offense, so I like the upside for a win bonus for him. Should be a pretty good spot to get to some Wheeler. He's one of the top projected pitchers on the slate. And then the Phillies bats very much in play with the second highest implied total at 5.56, 5.57, going up against Jeffrey Springs, who has had a couple decent outings in his last few after hitting some bumps. Gave us one really good start to begin the season, and then it was nothing but earned runs over like 5 starts, but then has pitched pretty clean in his last 4 starts. Not that we're really going to be considering him, but it's at least something to keep in mind as you're looking at those Phillies bats. But ultimately, we love the upside for power. We really like that lineup for run creation, correlated scoring, so should be a good spot for Phils. Chris Sale, Zach Wheeler, number 1, number 2 on the board, very closely projected, but Sale gets there a little bit more on his raw strikeout stuff, but there are more strikeouts in the Athletics lineup than there are in the Padres lineup. It's essentially a tie. Then we get a third-ranked Yusei Kikuchi at a phenomenal price on both sides, 8,800, 8,200. Yes, he's difficult to trust. Yes, he's given us disaster games from time to time, and he's always been a home run target. But when he's on, he can be very, very good. He can find the strikeouts, especially against this Marlins lineup. Lefty does impact the power bats in that lineup pretty significantly as well. So I like the upside for Kikuchi at those prices. I think that DraftKings price is exceptionally low. You can use him as an SP2, as a higher priced SP2. But I probably like him at 82 better than Gallen against the Cards at 88. Schmidt at 72 against the Rockies. Sandy, who's been just way, way off form, at 77. This is an effective price. Pablo Lopez, just again, against a low strikeout Kansas City team that I do have a healthy respect for as far as their lineup, their hit tools, the power that has not really come through a ton this season. 10,900 for Pablo when he's not really projecting like crazy. That's a fairly low projection for those prices. You know, you'd like to see another 3 to 5 points on top when you're paying premium dollar for it. But he's definitely on the board and probably amongst the upside pitchers of the day, probably lingers in lower ownership than a lot of them. Molly, I think, is a good attack point, 9,100, 9,600 going up against the White Sox. No reason not to utilize that. You can use him as an SP1. He has been pitching well enough to justify it, but he's a weaker version of an SP1 than the Chris Sales, the Zach Wheelers of the world. Has a little bit less strikeout upside than Yusei Kikuchi when they're both on form, but good enough to get through the White Sox. 91, 96, I prefer the FanDuel price. Pivetta against an improving Atlanta lineup, he's good enough to get through it. There are strikeouts there, so it's another believable enough spot. I just feel like, why do I really want to pay 10-3 for a Nick Pivetta, who I don't fully trust anyway, who's like the 8th or 9th best pitcher on this board if we're just taking all the matchups and everything out of it. I don't love him at that price. I think he should probably be more priced like Zach Gallen. Maybe somewhere in between. But it is a Braves lineup that does have some strikeout in it. Gallen against St. Louis, I just like attacking that St. Louis lineup. Every now and then they break out for some runs, but overall they're not that good. Gallen is incredibly erratic, though. So you're just kind of rolling the dice with him, but I do think that keeps people off of him when they might otherwise go to him. But again, a deep slate, it's difficult to make a really strong argument for Zach Gallen. Schmitty at the DraftKings price is very interesting. I think that is a very usable SP2. On FanDuel at 94, you're just rolling dice and hoping for extreme low ownership because of Coors Field. I don't love it on FanDuel. I think that's really challenging at that price. 7,200 on DraftKings absolutely works, though. That's one of the more favorable SP2s, even pitching in Coors Field. Sandy's difficult, 8,077. We'll talk him through in more depth when we get to that game, but I don't love it, but he's very cheap. There is strikeout upside. There are strikeouts in that Angels lineup. If we find, that's the thing. It's difficult to say no because I want to be there the day that the old version of Sandy comes back. And that's a good target for that guy. It's not a good target for this guy, if that makes sense. Noah Cameron, I think, is interesting, 81, 85. But considering I can have Clark Schmidt for 72 rather than Cameron for 85, I'll take Coors Field out of it and just target the way worse lineup with a pitcher that I have more justification for believing in. Noah Cameron making his third start. That Twins lineup, decent, not great. Getting Carlos Correa back today, definitely some upside. But I can see Cameron succeeding at 81 on FanDuel. I certainly like him better than a $9,400 Schmidt on that site. Like him better than Sandy Alcantara for 100 less. Rasmussen, 85, 83, kind of caught in between as far as those prices go. Not great on either site, just considering the strikeout downside that comes with facing that Toronto lineup. And playing in that ballpark, I don't really like the spot for Rasmussen. Wouldn't shock me if he had an effective day. But as far as chasing upside, it's pretty thin given where he's priced. Kershaw against the Mets, I think just 4 or 5 innings, probably a pretty hard no at 76, 8,000. Those are good prices for the name brand that you're getting there, but that's really all you're getting. Ciccone, difficult to justify, very low projections. You can see how quickly the projections dip. So like I said, it is a long board of pitchers, and there are some fair prices for even those projections through the middle. But you can see there's a pretty dramatic cut from the top few guys in the upper 30s and 40s, or approaching 40 and 20s on DraftKings, to immediately cut to right around 30. And then significantly below that, the rest of the way down the board. So it's not an easy pitching slate. I do think you could succeed with Griff Canning against the Dodgers on the right day. 8,600 on FanDuel, not really doing you any favors. And as stated, a lot of power showing in the upside for the Dodgers. Canning's always been a target for power, but he is pitching well this season. It's much more justifiable on DraftKings at 76 as an SP2. Eric Lauer's pushing a lot of power upside and general upside in Tampa Bay's direction. I don't really like that. Giolito, I don't think you're going to, even at 65 on DraftKings. That is a very cheap price, and it is a scuffling Orioles lineup. But Fenway Park, Giolito not on form, been bad, short outings. There's a lot working against that one at that price. Job at 74, I think, is on your SP2 board for DraftKings. I think there's enough upside for Ks, but it's not a safe spot. That's probably going to be a both-sided situation. Gusto's going to come down to what the innings look like. 6,200 is a very cheap price for a kid who's got pretty good strikeout to walk numbers. So I don't mind at least considering Gusto as a very cheap SP2. Jeffrey Springs, difficult to trust at 63, certainly not at 83 going up against the Phils in the minor league park. Burke, 5,500, difficult against the Rangers when they're showing offense in the Vegas numbers. Hancock against the Astros. How about Jose Altuve, by the way? Signs of life last night with 2 home runs. 5,800 for Hancock. Could he give you 5 somewhat effective innings for that price? Sure. For that kind of a play, it's on the board. But when we get to the bottom here, any one of these guys, Springs, Burke, Hancock, Michaelis even, you're just looking for a few clean innings, and you're just essentially considering it the free square. It's not a spot where, hey, I can get some cheap upside out of this guy. It's like, I can put this guy in my lineup for cheap, get a discount there, use the money on other spots, and hope for the best with 5 okay innings. That's the nature of like everybody from hell, like Sandy Alcantara down, honestly. But let's say anybody projected below 25 points, 12.5 points, pretty much in that bucket. Michaelis could give you some clean innings, but why would you really want to target the Diamondbacks? Morton's a hard no if it is him going for the Orioles in Fenway, and so is Tanner Gordon at Coors Field. Metro Boom 808 is here, says time to go Sale. Yeah, I think Sale definitely makes some sense. Don Pla says, hello, my guy. Can you tell me what are GPP plays I can use on a large field with like 20,000 people in it? That's what we're talking about. Those are the target tournaments that we talk about through these shows. So as we go through them, this is that is what we're considering here. Anthony Taylor, will you do a best ball NFL? I don't really play best ball. Could I do some rankings for it in like a strategy article or something like that as we approach that, closer toward the midsummer time I want to be thinking about football? Yeah, I was threatening to do it last year. Could I make it happen this year? We'll see. Let me give you an official we'll see rather than actually promising something I don't know that I want to live up to. But I know it's popular. I know people are looking for it. So I'd like to. But it being something that I don't personally play, I don't love jumping into that because there are nuances and everything. And like, I know the strategy, but I'm not going and executing it myself and finding my own lanes for what like I like to do and my approaches to things. It just gives me a little bit less, meat on the bone to then hand to you guys as far as like what's the value of it, right? So we'll see. Greg Biancone says Friday's my favorite show. Appreciate that, buddy. XX Cubs with an excellent question. Is there a website that has projections for less than $1 a day we can sign up to? In fact, there is, my friend. rotoscouts.com. How about that? If you go over to rotoscouts.com, you can sign up for a monthly, a weekly, or a quarterly plan for under $1 a day, and you can access all of the major sports at the same time for the same price. No per sport fees. Not looking to drain your bankrolls and put it into my bankroll. I'm looking to everybody have good access to good numbers. If you play 150 lineups in gigantic tournaments, these projections work just fine for you. That's what I've done over time with these projections and seen great success. If you play more like I'm playing right now, where you're entering 10, 15, 20 lineups here and there, and you're playing every day, but you're playing fewer, you're getting more into hand building and liking to, really consider the nuances of the slate. That is exactly what these are designed for. That is exactly who I'm trying to cater to, because all the numbers over time, every survey I ever did when I was working over at Awesemo and talking to you guys about these things, people build 1 to 20 lineups. The 150 maxers, they're out there for sure. Is it the most mathematically correct way to play? Sure, but it's also painful on the bankroll when it's not going well. So we're here to cater to the people who don't need or want to spend hundreds of dollars a month per sport on their projections. We're here for the people who hand build. We're here for the people who are building 1, 5, 20, or 150 lineups. We're not just here for the 150 guys, people who can pay thousands of dollars a month for tools and different add-ons. It's not what we're all about. So check it out. Good question. Appreciate you too, Anthony Taylor. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe as well. 6-2 Boston. Devers just homered. How about that? I don't know why I'm getting excited about the Red Sox taking the lead, but Rafi Devers, they brought it up right after Bregman came out of the game. They immediately said, I hope that doesn't, it's a Red Sox broadcast. I hope that doesn't mean they're going to have another positional conversation with Rafi Devers. Because if Bregman's out for any appreciable amount of time, they might have to do just that. And he does not want to play in the field anymore. But anyway, let's get into this thing. Subscribe to the channel. It does help. We're trying to get that up to 1,000 subscribers, talking to the same people who are already subscribed every day. Maybe not the best way to do that. So you guys, go tell a friend. Tell a friend to pop up on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and then they can leave. All I want is that little subscription. If they stick around, if they're a longtime member after that, so much the better. But all we want to do is just bolster that subscription number, feed the algorithm a little bit. Blue Jays and the Rays, Drew Rasmussen on the mound. Definitely a bandbox ballpark down here in Tampa Bay, the way this park is playing with Yankee Stadium's dimensions in the Tampa Heat. We talked about it day one of this season, and it's pretty much held strong. So love the upside for some Rays bats. You can see the stretch of power right there around Junior Caminero. Brandon Lau, even with a lefty on the mound, doesn't really matter. They didn't even drop him in the lineup. That's how much they just not really respect for Eric Lauer right now. Christopher Morel, whose swing we love. Danny Jansen is pulling a respectable power number at 8.05 in the model. He's got 3 on the board. 4.84 implied total for Tampa, one of the better totals on the entire slate. So right out of the gate, we've got some upside for offense down in Tampa Bay. I wouldn't take the Blue Jays off the board for that either, even though they're showing like mid-board type power, even the Vladdies of the world at just 6.59, George Springer at 4.10 up at the top of the lineup, a somewhat surging Bo Bichette at 4.22 in terms of his power. He's up to 4 home runs now. I'm saying that somewhat sarcastically. But there's plenty of upside for offense here. They're striking out at just an 18.7% rate with this collection of hitters. A couple medium, small samples in there. 15.2% for the same group of hitters last season, although that does include a 0 for Miles Straw, so that's probably also not completely correct. That group, 17.1. Call it something like 17, 18%. So it's a difficult target for Drew Rasmussen as far as finding success. He's pitched to a 2.93 ERA with a 3.41 xFIP, just a 1.0 whip on the nose, 22.2% strikeouts. It's a pretty solid little strikeout to walk there as far as the 5.6% walks. He hasn't gotten nailed for power. He's kept the launch angle down pretty respectably at 7.3 degrees. That's where some of this is coming from. Just a 3.33% home run rate. We don't want to see that tick any higher, and we don't want to see him make mistakes on this end because these are already above our threshold. 42.2% hard hits, 90 plus miles an hour of exit velo could get problematic. So that's where I'm saying that I think the Blue Jays are definitely going to be in play with their ability to hit the baseball pretty hard with their low strikeout rates. So high quality of contact plus high frequency of contact does tend to equal some offensive upside. And that's why I think they're pulling a 4+. The bandbox ballpark is obviously on their side. So we're mostly about hitting here. We didn't have much of Rasmussen over the last couple seasons, but he was good for limiting power in both of those samples. Back in 2022, he had a 2.23% home run rate. So it was, again, good in a larger sample at limiting power. Has never been a monster strikeout pitcher, but does have okay strikeout stuff. At 85, it's not great on FanDuel, like I was saying in the pitching breakdown. At 83 on DraftKings, same thing. Not great. I think he's playable. Would not surprise me if he put up a 30-point FanDuel day, a 15-point DraftKings day. I don't know that that wins you the day today, though. And he comes with some downside, and honestly, you're not getting enough discount. He should probably be closer to 8, 70, 77, 78 on DraftKings. Closer to 8 on FanDuel. Lauer at 7,600, 12 innings, 1 start so far this year. In the 1 start, he went 3. He gave up 1 earned run. He struck out 5. He walked 0. The earned run came on a solo homer. 4 2/3 in bulk relief in the outing before that. Struck out 5, walked 1 in that one. 1 hit to 14 hitters. Had a 4-inning relief appearance back at the end of April as well. Went 4, gave up, faced 17 hitters, gave up 2 earned, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks. Not a very high-end pitcher here. Ignore the 31.8 in the small sample. Over 46 2/3 in 9 starts back 2 years ago. 20.4% strikeouts, 11.4% walks, a 5.58 xFIP, under a 6.56 ERA. Year before that was a little bit more effective in a larger sample. 3.69 ERA with a 4.08 xFIP, 23.8% Ks, 8.9% walks. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that in a fully extended setup, this is probably the correct version of Eric Lauer. So he's not bad, but he's also not good. He's also not fully stretched out. We're seeing plenty of offense in Vegas and in the model on the other side of this one. I really think it's a good day to avoid Eric Lauer, even at 7,000, even at 6,700. Doesn't really project out all that strong. If you're going Blue Jays bats, At 4,200, 3,000, Bo Bichette remains very, very cheap for a guy slashing 289, 335, 417, creating runs 14% better than average, putting terrific bat on ball, 8.7% barrels, 50% hard hits, doesn't strike out, doesn't really draw walks, so it's about the frequency of contact. I like the upside for the cheap price. Vladdy Guerrero, under 5,000 on DraftKings, just 3,200 on FanDuel. 279, 382, 421. Those numbers are not crazy far off the mark. The power's been out a little bit, but not because of the contact. Contact's mostly intact. 13.5% barrels, 50.7% hard hits. Looks roughly like that. 6 home runs, just a 142 ISO. It's more about results than it's been about his quality. So sometimes you hit the ball really hard and you can't exactly control where it goes. And I think he's suffered a little bit of bad luck. Love the upside for Vladdy, both in the long term and on this slate. Dalton Varsho, 47.35. Very expensive for him on FanDuel. DraftKings a little bit more friendly. That's not a terrible price for a guy carrying a 20.5% barrel rate, 47.7% hard hits, 7 home runs in just 71 plate appearances. That's obviously a very extended outburst of power from Dalton Varsho. We know he's not going to be that guy over the next 500 plate appearances running. There will be a cooling as far as the power goes, and he's already only slashing 215, 239, 615. Obviously, that's a great slug on the end. But this is not a reliable option. It is, however, a guy who can turn on one from Drew Rasmussen, target that short porch and right, and succeed via the ballpark. He does have real power. It's not crazy to see him hit home runs. It's just the frequency at which they've come so far has been shocking. But on DraftKings, not bad. At 35 on FanDuel, they've gotten way too excited about the start. Springer at 45, 3,000, I think is probably, at worst, fairly priced. Solid barrel and hard hit numbers out of him so far. 5 homers, 7 steals, getting on at a 372 clip, creating runs 38% better than average. Definitely an appealing part of this team and a priority in stacks of Blue Jays. Alejandro Kirk, just 3,300 on DraftKings, 2,600 on FanDuel, slashing 282, 318, 373. He's an effective bat. He's not premium at the catcher spot, but he's also not expensive. If you're just paying 33 at catcher, you're fine. There are going to be a few cheaper options, but he's in that group of could give you a little upside. He's got a 52.4% hard hit rate this year. That's up from last year. He's always made okay contact. He's always been a low strikeout, so you're buying a lot of potential contact. Not a terrible option. Addison Barger barreling the ball like crazy, 13.4% of his batted ball events, 58.2% hard hits. It's resulted in just 2 home runs and a 174 ISO over 94 plate appearances. If he keeps making contact like that, all the other numbers are going to go up. The 367 xWOBA supports that theory. Definitely in play at 2,900 at third base on DraftKings, 25 in the outfield on FanDuel or at third. That totally works. And then the bottom 3, a little bit weaker. Ernie Clement, Nathan Lukes, Miles Straw. Any one of those guys can give you a couple of hits. Any one of those guys can give you a stolen base. You have a little bit more power showing out of Nathan Lukes from the left side at 34.27. For a cheap lefty bat in this stadium, it's definitely in consideration. The other 2 are more hit tool focused, more stolen base, correlated scoring focused, and they've been just kind of mixed results in that so far this year. What you definitely don't want is 2 or 3 of those guys. If you're taking one of those at the bottom of the lineup, it's just take one and put them on with anybody, any other guys from 1 through 6. With the Rays bats, we get Yandy Diaz in the top spot. Just a 7.35 in the home run model for him, but that's not nothing. Same thing with Danny's 8.05 and with Josh Lowe's 7.57. So this is a really strong, true stretch of power over those top 6 hitters. That's you can see the difference between the full lineup power number, and these go into the power index that comes with your subscription over at rotoscouts. So the 743 for the home run model here is the summary number for the full lineup, and that includes a 0.79 out of Chandler Simpson, who is probably never going to hit a major league home run, and some other low numbers. But the top 6 is at a 9.59, which is chasing the magic number of 10 pretty efficiently. So there is definitely power showing for Tampa Bay here. $4,600, $2,900 Yandy Diaz. He's up to 254, 303, 416 after an awful start. 357 xWOBA with a 107 WRC plus shows you that the quality remains despite the bad results to start his season. So does an 8% barrel, 54.3% hard hits, both of which are up over last year and reminiscent of his excellent 2023 campaign. I love the option. Strikeouts are down. Walks are down a little bit. But this is a very, very good player, a very good on-base option who provides tons of correlated scoring, who has not been far off the mark, and he's just cheap to start this stack. 46 on DraftKings is not fully cheap, as much as 29 is, but it's very affordable and nobody else is above 5,000. So it's easy to use Rays here. Junior Caminero at 43.28, given the contact, 8.6% barrels, 49.6% hard hits from the young hitter, 20.5% strikeouts, not enough walks, not getting on base at a kind of clip you would want, 259 on base, 14 points below average for run creation, 172 ISO is also a little bit of a letdown, but 8 home runs on the board and just tons of power pedigree as a prospect. He's just cheap now to target this lefty with. I don't mind Junior Caminero shares at all. Brendan Lau at 44,300. Typically, we don't love against lefties, but I do think there's some upside here. You can see it in the home run model. Tons of premium contact out of Lau. If we chase Eric Lauer early enough, and we're only expecting like 5 innings from him, I think we have upside facing the bullpen with Brandon Lau. If other people don't go there, you get him at a little bit of an ownership discount. 8 home runs on the board, just a 159 ISO, but a 345 xWOB underneath. Very good contact numbers. Looking mostly like Brandon Lau, and the price tag is down. Christopher Morel, another guy from that group of premium swings as far as swing speed and fast swing rate. 16.2% barrels is where that translates, 42.6% hard hits. He's turned it into just 3 home runs, just a 129 ISO over 130 plate appearances. Those are uncharacteristic results for Christopher Morel when he's mashing like that. Part of it, the 36.9% strikeouts. That is up significantly for a guy who already struck out a lot. He is drawing his walks. He has contributed, but at 85 WRC plus is not where we need him. We want the guy who is mashing. 26 home runs in 429 plate appearances 2 years ago. 16 in 425 the year before that. 21 in 611 while slashing 196, 288, 346 last year is the downside of Christopher Morel. Not a consistent player, not a reliable player, but at 3,800, 2,500, especially on FanDuel at those positions, there is tons and tons of upside. 10.64 in the home run model. Danny, given the $2,700 price tag, we immediately, like I was saying about Alejandro Kirk, we immediately have a cheaper, probably higher upside option at 27 on your DraftKings slate where you have to play catchers. You can see the difference just if you're looking at the home run model, 8.05 versus the guy with a 2.66. Danny's also sub Mendoza, 192, 339, 303, but he's getting on base a lot. The xWOBA supports a little bit of upside. We know he can connect with the ball fairly well from time to time. 3 home runs in 121 plate appearances. Not terrible, but not incredibly appealing either outside of Blue Jay stacks, other than just book a cheap square for a 5-hitting catcher. Josh Lowe at 47.32 in the outfield. Not a bad option. Made some very good contact early in his season. That's kind of consistent with last year's numbers, year before. 2 home runs on the board, 333 on base, creating runs 58% better than average over his 30 plate appearances. This is a guy who's a talented player. 10 home runs, 25 steals last year, just 2 points below average for run creation over just 387 plate appearances. You give him the other 200 and change plate appearances for his season, I think those numbers normalize even more. 292, 335, 500 the year before, 20 homers, 32 steals. He's not necessarily that guy, but he's somewhere in between those two players. And we're getting that version of him right now. So I definitely think he's on the board. 47 is a little bit uncomfortably high. That would be the ceiling that I would want to pay for Josh Lowe on any slate, regardless of how he's going. 32, a little bit more fair on FanDuel. Jose Caballero, Curtis Mead, Chandler Simpson. 3 interesting bats down lineup. It's another scenario where I don't want more than one of those guys in any given lineup. But you get multi-position out of 2 of those guys on FanDuel at cheap pricing. Same thing on DraftKings at cheap pricing. Although Curtis Mead at second base for 21 is probably the most appealing thing there. Caballero's absolutely outplayed Curtis Mead so far in his 125 plate appearances. He's stolen 15 bases, creating runs 4% better than average. But there's not a lot of pop in that bat. The 278 xWOBA kind of betrays even the low-end slash line that he's put up so far. Curtis Mead should have more to give at some point. We've seen good numbers from him throughout the minors. It's just at the major league level, he has found almost no success so far. So he's just cheap. And then you get the fastest man in baseball in the 9 spot, Chandler Simpson, 4,200. Not a bad wraparound on either site to just bring him back to the top of the lineup. Slashing 289, 314, 330. This is exactly what we expected. He's stolen 12 bags and 104 plate appearances. That pace honestly might be a little bit behind expectations for the stolen bases just because he is ridiculously fast. He stole 100 plus bases in the minors last year. So love the upside. All you need from him is on base correlated scoring and the bonuses from the stolen bases. Rays bats, Blue Jays bats, Drew Rasmussen, and then if you're inclined to throw a dart at Eric Lauer, feel free, but I don't really consider him an option. All right, this game only on DraftKings, so stop me every time I try and bring up FanDuel. That's why I zeroed out their pricing so I wouldn't do it. Don saying, is the LA pitcher, is the Angels pitcher too chalk for second pitcher? I wouldn't worry about it. Let's see what the ownership looks like, though, on DK. I'm sure he's going to be popular. But I really wouldn't worry about individual popularity for anybody, and especially not among pitchers. I think pitching, you can just play and just get different with your bats. He's pulling a lot of DraftKings ownership. But honestly, I was expecting higher. It's sub 30% in the ownership projections that I'm looking at here. It's one of the higher owned pitchers on the entire slate, for sure. But it's a big, broad slate, so he could easily have been 7-8 points higher than this. I don't want to give the full 10 because that would be a silly number, but he could easily be a handful of points higher than this. Probably will when it's all said and done, but it's just not something I think you should sweat. It's a good spot. What he's not is safe by any stretch of the imagination. So that's where you can lose with Yusei Kikuchi. Greg B. and Cone's calling it. Single entry separates the men from the boys anyway, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. That's the more like, hey, you only get one crack at this rather than volume. Let's see who can really build lineups. I don't play a ton of single entry just because I'm, stars in my eyes chasing the bigger prize pools and everything. But yeah, I don't disagree with that take. Charlie Morton, Lucas Giolito. Giolito pitching to just an 18.9% strikeout rate, 6.7% walks. A 7.08 ERA is obviously not the correct number, but a 4.21 xFIP is really high for what Lucas Giolito maybe was and is hoping to get back to. 10.4% barrels over the mark, 40.3% hard hits, 91.6 miles an hour of exit velo, all over the mark. Definitely not interested in Giolito. 65, it fits in price-wise. But I just think this Orioles lineup is better than they've been. He's been mostly a mess in his 4 outings. Had a good one against the Royals. He went 6 2/3, just 1 earned run, struck out 5, walk 1. But if that's your upside, it's tough. 4 innings last time out against the Braves, 6 earned runs on 3 homers, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. 3 2/3, 6 earned runs on 10 hits, 2 strikeouts and a walk against Texas. Texas has not been putting runs on a lot of pitchers. 6 innings of okay ball in his season debut all the way back on April 30th against Toronto, but I don't know how much we want to count that. 7 strikeouts, 3 earned runs on 5 hits. Even that is not a great DFS day. 2 home runs allowed. So I think we're just looking at bats. 4.5 run total for the O's kind of says everything that we really need to. 5.10 implied total for the Red Sox because the corpse of Charlie Morton is on the mound. Charlie has been pitching in bulk relief the last few outings. 4 1/3 most recently. Gave up just 1 earned run, struck out 6, walked 1. Just 1 earned over 3, struck out 4, walked 1, came on a home run. No earned runs over 2. So technically his last complete game, 9 1/3 innings, have been somewhat effective. Just 2 earned runs over that 9 1/3. That was against Washington, Minnesota, and the Angels pitching in relief. His last start, 4 innings, faced 17 hitters, 2 strikeouts and a walk, gave up a homer, 3 earned runs on 4 hits. It's been pretty ugly. He's been honestly better in bulk relief than he has making starts. Maybe we get an opener follower situation, but that would just take the win bonus away. I just don't like it at any price. 5,000 with the Red Sox at a 5+. As mentioned, you probably lose Alex Bregman from this lineup. No projected lineups for this one. This game 1 is still going on, but Bregman came out of game 1 rounding first base on a potential double. Came up a little bit limping and immediately said like, hey, I need to come out. So I would be shocked if Alex Bregman's in the lineup, but that doesn't mean we play Charlie Morton. So Orioles bats, This is still the projected lineup for them as well. We'll see what we get. It can be wonky on a second game of a doubleheader. Jackson Holiday, very cheap at $3,900 for a kid who's got 6 home runs on the board, is kind of fulfilling his potential finally. 10.3% barrels, 47% hard hits. Not really striking out. 21.7% Ks, down from 33.2 so far in the small sample. Love the improvements that he's made. And again, this is not a surprise. This is not a flash in the pan. This is the kid just finally arriving with both feet on the ground in the major leagues and should honestly continue to trend upward from here, especially given a 351 xWOB under the covers. His creator runs 20% better than average. Gunnar for just 4,700, 12.40 in the home run model against Giolito. I like that upside. He's hit 7 in his 179 plate appearances, not giving us the numbers that we fully expect from Gunnar. 257, 307, 455, but the power of the contact has been intact. 8.6% barrels is down in a small sample from 11-2, 11-4 the last 2 years, but the 56.9% hard hits is actually up. Strikeouts are up, walks are down. Been still chasing the timing a little bit, but given the discount in price at 47, that is a superstar kid that we can buy at shortstop for several $100 off. Ryan Mountcastle at 3,600. I'm just buying cheap premium contact. 11% barrels, 48% hard hits. At some point, that results in power upside. He's carrying somehow an inexplicable .097 ISO. He's only hit 2 home runs over 175 plate appearances, despite making that kind of contact. At some point, this changes. It just has to. I know he's not a premium home run hitter, but he's so cheap. Hitting third in this lineup most of the time, second or third lately. 9.57 in the home run model is number 2 on the Orioles today. I like the upside in a continuing sense for Ryan Mountcastle. Ryan O'Hearn, 4,100, way too cheap. $4,600 for Cedric Mullins, too cheap. But O'Hearn, between the two, I honestly prefer at this point. 7 home runs for him versus 10 for Mullins, 7 stolen bases for Mullins versus 1 for O'Hearn. But O'Hearn slashing 306, 396, 507, a 201 ISO, 382 xWOBA versus the 236, 332, 473 with a 236 ISO and a 320 xWOBA. Both guys have been good, but O'Hearn is the guy I actually believe in a little bit more and believe in the sustainability of the high-end numbers. Mullins ultimately is more just counting stats. The 10 home runs, the 7 steals are not unrealistic, but I don't expect a long-term success throughout the slash line. Emmanuel Rivera, 2,700, playable option, 5.54 in the home run model, 262, 340, 310 over the first 47 plate appearances. If it's him, then you're fine there. He's secure stat at 3,000 is cheap for a guy who has a 9.5% barrel rate, 46.4% hard hits. He's hit 4 home runs, but the slash line is otherwise ugly. So look away from the slash, grab some lefty pop in that bat for a cheap price. If you're going there, it's not a bad option. And he honestly might end up hitting higher up in the lineup. Dylan Carlson, Maverick Handley down lineup. Mix and match pieces at the absolute best, and really haven't even given you that over their 25 and 20 plate appearances. This is the second game of a doubleheader lineup. Duran and Devers up at the top of the Red Sox. Easy to play against Charlie Morton. Couple of premium lefty bats. Devers has been on absolute fire. The 10 home runs that are showing don't account for the one he just hit a few minutes ago with his 11th of the season, 409 on base, a 234 ISO, a 424 xWOBA. Remember when people were worried about Rafi Devers? 5,300 still kind of reflects that concern. He should be by now 56, something like that. They're a little bit behind the curve. Duran at 52 for 265, 313, 414 with obvious upside considering what we saw from him end to end last year. It's not a bad price. It's not maybe reflective of the performance so far this year with a 1% below average WRC plus mark, but he's easy to play, especially against a dead righty like Charlie Morton. So love the option for Duran. Willier, I think, would be very much in play, might end up hitting third, and they just go straight trio of lefties to start. 4,300 with a 14% barrel rate, 48.8% hard hits. He's hit 11 homers. He's been in a little bit of a extended slump, but the power is really what we're looking for. He's out of the lineup for the day game against a lefty starter, so I would absolutely expect him in this lineup. Premium upside, a lot of hard hits. He's cut strikeouts. He's walking more. He's been very valuable, 129 WRC plus so far. Christian Campbell, another player, absolutely slumping. I was talking about it the other day. The book is really caught up on him. Major league pitchers are now exploiting what he is not, where he's underdeveloped, let's say. I forgot to go back and check. I think it's up in the zone that he's having problems with. But whatever it is, major league pitchers have made the adjustment, and he's something like 5 for his last however many plate appearances. Really rough May for the kid. He's going to adjust. He's too talented not to. And he's going to come back with some numbers. But it's not easy to say that it's going to be immediate or even soon. So right now, he's a little bit looser of an option. But 4,200 is a fair enough price for the numbers that we saw him put up to begin his season. Right now, he's sitting at 231, 320, 378 with 5 homers, 2 steals. Abraham Toro, over the years, we've gotten some okay fantasy production. Whenever he's cheap in the lineup, he's all right. I just don't love the first base, third base of it. For 2,200, it's fine. But, if I'm chasing like this kind of a guy, that's obviously not that appealing. 21 plate appearances 2 years ago, 10 home runs, 2 steals. Where are his good numbers? He had good numbers at some point, didn't he? Am I just making that up? Yeah, I guess maybe it's just the mediocrity that I've been chasing all this time. Hang on. Now I got to see this full picture. I thought we had at least one good season in there. I guess 11 home runs, 10 home runs in 375, 352 plate appearances isn't bad. He was low strikeout, medium walk rate. One of those years was with Houston. Then he was with Seattle for the next one. Just never has hit for average. Never really been reliable at all at getting on base. Some stolen base upside. That was part of what was standing out to me there. I thought he had stolen more bases in those successful double-digit home run seasons. So anyway, we're buying essentially with Abraham Toro, then we're buying low strikeout frequency of contact, and that is true, with a little bit of pop in that bat. But actually, those numbers are underwhelming from what I falsely remembered. Trevor Story, 3,500 playable. 6 home runs, 9 stolen bases. You're chasing some counting stats. Could easily climb in the lineup if Bregman doesn't go, which I would expect. So not a terrible option considering the 10.2% barrels, the 46.9% hard hits, even in a meh kind of 200 plate appearances. That plus the counting stats keeps him on board at 3,500. That is not a bad DraftKings price. 3,000 rather for David Hamilton, mix and match infielder, and then Connor Wong does have some power upside from the catcher spot. He's the dead min price. 13 home runs in 487 plate appearances last year, 283, 33, 425 created runs, 10% better than average. Hit 9 in 403 plate appearances the year before. Not a terrible option if he's in the lineup at the mid price. Red Sox bats, Orioles bats, neither pitcher. R. Jones says, I will unsubscribe if you don't give me a shout out now. You had to wait till I looked at the chat, as Larry C. somehow said psychically above that comment. Cub says, Chasing Mediocrity is the name of his autobiography. Metro Boom's calling for the Tim Anderson double dong. Or was that yesterday? Timmy Anderson did have a good game. Oh, maybe that wasn't yesterday that he had the decent game. 0 for 2, what happened in his other plate appearance? Was it just walks and runs? I felt like he had a good score yesterday. Or Tim Anderson was alive yesterday kind of a score. Maybe that was the day before. Either way, Angels went off a little bit yesterday. Mets, Dodgers, showdown in Queens. I think Clay Kershaw at these prices against a good Mets lineup when we're only expecting 4 innings or so, maybe get stretched to 5. It's pretty difficult to justify. 8,000 over here, 76. You're just paying for the name on the back of the jersey right now at those prices. And like that looks appealing, but I think it's such a limited ceiling even compared to other guys in that price tier against a very high quality Mets lineup that doesn't really strike out a lot, 21.2% strikeouts, that has so many good hitters. It just feels a little bit challenging at those prices. Bad outing in his debut. Last year, 30 innings, 18% strikeouts. The year before, if we're getting back to anywhere near those levels, but I mean, this is an older pitcher who's been very fragile. It's difficult to envision him even getting back to there. And I think we want to see it before we go pay anything for him. So kind of off the board for me. 76-86 for Griff Canning. It feels like a not against the Dodgers kind of a spot, but he's been pitching undeniably well. 2.47 ERA, a 3.37 xFIP, 12.3% swinging strikes, 23.2% strikeouts overall. He's given up a fair amount of premium contact, but he's kept the ball down this year. 7-degree average launch helps with 48.1% hard hits, 91 plus miles an hour of exit velo, nearly 92. But you can see last year, those were similar numbers on a just higher trajectory on the average, resulted in a 4.19% home run rate. Year before, similar numbers on a higher average trajectory, 4.10 home run rate. He's always been vulnerable to the long ball. I don't know for sure that has actually changed. The Mets pitching infrastructure is very, very good. They're pitching coaches. So have they tweaked things around the edges of what Griff Canning already was doing well, even while giving up those home runs? Yeah, they definitely have. Little bit of an uptick in swinging strikes from 11%, which was already all right last year, to 12.3. The bigger improvement, the CSW, from 25.5 to 29.1. So yeah, he is notably better and pitching kind of at his apex this year. But the Dodgers are a different animal than a lot of the teams that we're going to face. So I just really don't like it, and I fully believe in all that power you can see on the Dodgers side. One of the top marks in the home run model for the entire lineup, 9.73 is the average, 11 plus for the top 6. Some obvious thunder in this Dodgers lineup. This is the confirmed version. We get Shohei Ohtani, 65-46. It's Ohtani, 17 homers, 11 steals. They were talking about what I've been saying since opening day or since last year on Central earlier. Ohtani should just never pitch again. I know people love him as a pitcher. I know he's extremely talented. He is just too valuable as a hitter. They should never pitch him again, but they need help on the mound too. 18 in the home run model, one of the top numbers of the day. Mookie Betts, 55-41. Shortstop only on DraftKings, which sucks because Mookie will play wherever you tell him to in real life. Second base is dynamite on FanDuel for 41. 267, 350, 439, 8 homers, 5 steals. Some of that is a little bit underwhelming over 206 plate appearances for Mookie. He is talking about still being down weight and not being, fully where he wants to be physically. But those are still good numbers for a guy who's struggling with that. It's just a very high price on either site for a guy who's kind of got some little bit of lingering negatives. It's difficult to say anything bad about Mookie Betts in this spot, though. He's just a superstar. 61-42 for Freddie Freeman with 9 home runs on the board with an 8.65 in the home run model, and lefties have always mashed Griff Canning. Love the upside for Freddie here. 12.8% barrels, 46.2% hard hits, slashing 368, 427, 660 with a 412 xWOBA. Will Smith, 339, 455, 508, 404 xWOBA. He's hit 4 home runs, stolen 2 bases. Tremendous slash line, getting on at a 455 clip, creating runs 73% better than average. For just 47, that's a really cheap price for those numbers from a catcher. He should be a 5,000 plus catcher on DraftKings where you have to play it. That's a bargain. That's a good one-off opportunity if you have money to spend. Typically, if we're going to one-off catcher, we're going to do it at a big discount and go to the Danny Jansen's of the world. But if you've got the money, that's a really strong consideration, even if you're not stacking Dodgers. Obviously plays up very, very well in Dodger stacks. Teoscar Hernandez back in the lineup at 54-37. He's got 10 home runs. He's slashing 307, 329, 599. What an embarrassment of riches for this team. 11.6% barrels, 42% hard hits. Max Muncy, 10.3% barrels, 48.6% hard hits, carrying a 9.90 in the home run model. He's only hit 3. We've talked about him at great length this season. 335 xWOBA supports my end of the argument that he is going to eventually turn things around and be just fine. The strikeouts are exactly where they're supposed to be. The walks are exactly where they're supposed to be. The premium contact is exactly where it's supposed to be. I'm not sweating it with Max Muncy. I'm a believer. At 3,500, that is a dynamite way to help average down the pricing of the Dodgers without losing much upside. At 29 on FanDuel, it's the same thing. It's just less effective in the 4-man versus the 5-man. Andy Pages, 4,400, 3,100, having a tremendous year. 184 plate appearances, 9 home runs, 5 steals, a 205 ISO, creating runs 22% better than average. Michael Conforto at just 32-26, another good lefty. 10.2% barrels, 45.9% hard hits. Conforto could absolutely do some damage in a revenge spot here. Not that we chase revenge at all. 164, 299, 267. It's been a bad 174 plate appearances. but 7.89 in the home run model. Lefties are big upside spots against Canning historically. I will roll the dice a few times on Conforto to help average down a 5-man on DraftKings. And then Tommy Edman in the bottom spot, looking a lot more like Tommy Edman over the most recent 50 plate appearances after the outrageous 80 that he put up with 8 home runs and a killer slash line in the first chunk of the season. Second base eligible, not bad for 4,300, certainly playable. At 33 on FanDuel, that price is a little bit obnoxious for Tommy Edman. He should be upper 2s at most, but he's playable. Let's do our little exercise here. We'll go that and that. So, unfortunately, having to leave Teoscar out of the equation, the best we can do on that 5-man Dodgers now with Max and with Will in there is 5,260, so 5,300 apiece. So we don't have the same average down power necessarily as we did with the Dodgers in a couple recent spots, unless you went Max and Conforto to bring it down a little further. Now we're below 5,000. 4,960, so call it 5,000 a piece on the nose for the 5-man. Obviously, you've still got to get cheap in other spots in that lineup, but now I'm buying a 5-man from the Dodgers that's Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Max Muncy, and Michael Conforto, 2 big lefties. 4 of those 5 bats are lefty power bats to throw at Griff Canning. The other one's Mookie Betts. So for the 5,000 a piece, that's not a terrible way to build. And again, yeah, you're paying 5 for each of those 2 bats, but now you're paying 5 for those guys. That's where the power of that is. So playable 5-man that way. Obviously, you can take that down even further by rostering more of the bottom of the lineup. And this is not a lineup where it's, too much of, you don't want just a group of these hitters. If you said I took 5 down, that's a playable stack. That's only 4,160. You get Teoscar, Muncy, Pages, Conforto, and Edman. Obviously, that's not who you want when you just say blanket statement, I can draw Dodgers. But that's a much cheaper way to get to a big chunk of the lineup and a big chunk of their run creation. It's just all your power's kind of up in that territory. Mets, Lindor, top of the board, 5,400, 3,800, 10 home runs, 9 stolen bases, getting on at a 351 clip, creating runs 34% better than average. Looking just like Francisco Lindor, priced appropriately, maybe slightly cheap, $200 cheap on either side, 56, 4,000, I think would be fair. Always a priority in Mets stacks. 4.27 implied total for New York. Little respect there for Clay Kershaw. I wouldn't have been surprised if that had been mid 4, 4.5 plus. Mark Vientos for just 3,300, 2,500 in this lineup is miscast as their 2-hitter. Should be hitting like 5, but we'll take it. There's plenty of quality there. It's just he's not Juan Soto. Moving Soto to the 3 spot, a little silly, but playable. 33 for Vientos is a great price. I know he's only hit 5 home runs in 187 plate appearances. We're off the pace from last year, but he was so good last year as far as that power output, as far as his general reliability at cheap prices. I'm fine with going there, and hitting second is a benefit individually to him and his fantasy upside. So for that purpose, I don't mind it at all. It's just not the right way to build this lineup. 5,100 for Juan Soto is a stupid price. FanDuel holding somewhat firm at 36, but even that is a few $100 off the mark. Same price as Pete Alonso, 5,200 on DraftKings, 36 for Alonso. It's the best hitter of this generation. It's Ted Williams reincarnated. I know he's off to a slow start. 243, 374, 429, a 186 ISO. He's carrying a 434 xWOBA. He's got a 14% barrel rate, 55.9% hard hits. He strikes out at a 16.9% clip while walking 17.8% of the time. There's not much going on with Juan Soto that is not snap your fingers and it's immediately corrected. And 2 weeks from now, the numbers look a lot better. And we're just talking about why he's so cheap. He has gotten way too cheap on DraftKings. The FanDuel price is just, it's fine. It's appealing. That DraftKings price stands out for how cheap it is. And I recognize, again, 5,100 is not for the full slate, in the vacuum, a cheap price. But for that hitter on any slate, that's a cheap price. 52 for Alonso doesn't reflect the quality of his season or the hitter that he is in the long term. 9 home runs on the board, slashing 292, 395, 535. His best 220 plate appearance slash line, I would wager. but the home runs aren't odd. If anything, he might be a home run or two behind the pace that he should be at. 243 ISO, a 426 xWOBA. He's been mashing this season. Love the upside against any lefty, even this version of Clay Kershaw. Starling Marte, playable piece. 32.25 helps you bring down the pricing. He's been bad over 93 plate appearances, but we know that he's a better player than this. We know there are some counting stats there. So if we're just home run, stolen base, correlated scoring hunting, he's in play. Not super appealing, not a priority, but in play. Brendan Nimmo, lefty, I won't really sweat it. I'll chase the barrels, the hard hits, 11.2, 53.1, 8 home runs on the season, a terrible slash line, especially for who this hitter once was. But this seems to be the version of hitter that Brendan Nimmo is now. So we're just kind of home run hunting, little on base upside when he's going right. Right now, that's a 276 on a 7.7% walk. You can see how far that walk rate has plummeted. But he's in play at the price. 3,800 is not a bad price. Same thing with 28. Tyrone Taylor against the lefty. You throw him in for a little bit of low-owned pop. He hasn't delivered much of that at all this season, but it's in there. Brett Beatty, 3,025 mix and match option. He's hit 5 home runs. Puts good wood on the ball. 12.3% barrels, 44.6% hard hits. Just hasn't really seen any good results from it outside of the homers, the 222 ISO. Difficult to trust, but there is pop there. Second base is where you want him. And then Francisco Alvarez, the big right-handed thumper at catcher. 1 home run over 72 plate appearances, just a .078 ISO, just kind of finding his footing again. But we know what that power can look like when it's real, or when it's fully stretched out and engaged in his season. Last year, 11 homers and 338 with a 164 ISO. The year before, 25 and 423 with a 228 ISO in his rookie season. Tremendous bat at the bottom of the lineup for just 31. Another cheap catcher. Dodgers bats, Mets bats. If you play a pitcher, it should be Griff Canning, but you probably shouldn't do that. And that would only be on DraftKings. 86 to attack the Dodgers with this pitcher, just not right on FanDuel. R. Jones is fully stretched out. Quite the turn on to hear my voice, I guess. R. Jones asking, who is the sexiest player in the league right now? He's a man and a White Sox fan, he wants to note. Shaking things up in the chat today, R. Jones. I appreciate it. Metro Boom says New York Mets not cheap for a stack, but I do like Pete Lindor. See, that's the thing, though. I mean, those two individuals are high priced, but relative to them and their talent, they're not crazy high priced. Right? That's not a terrible price for this version of Pete Alonso, or honestly for any version of Pete Alonso. It's not a high price for Francisco Lindor in a vacuum, but the power of being able to, even with all 3 of the $5,000 guys, everybody else in this lineup is very cheap. So when you're actually talking about the stack is not expensive because you put Mark Vientos in there, and then let's get real cheap and low owned with Tyrone Taylor. $43.60 a piece for a stack that includes Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso? That is not expensive, my friend. So when you add guys to it and you average down via adding the 2 extra cheap guys, that price becomes very, very effective. So I would actually say the Mets are not as expensive as they ought to be. It's also not one of the higher totals on the board. Again, little bit of respect for Clay Kershaw and what he once was, little bit of respect for the Dodgers pen in that scenario. So I get it. I don't think they're the priority stack of the day by any means, but I also don't think they're necessarily expensive. Where they get more expensive is if you just do it as a 3-man. So keep in mind the power of the average. Both these lineups are in. Stephen Kwan leading off for the Guardians. The words Stephen Kwan were out of my mouth before I knew what I was going to say, so it just happened. As I pulled up the page, he was staring me in the face, and I just read his name to you for no real good reason, but he is leading off. This is another spot. I don't think we're targeting pitching here. Jackson Jobe, talented kid, but it really hasn't landed at the major league level yet. Pitching to a 4.12 ERA with a 4.90 xFIP, 18.5% strikeouts, 12.7% walks. He is inducing a 10% swinging strike, which is where you want it, but he's given up too much premium contact, a little bit too much in the home run number at 3.47 that honestly, given that contact, could be a little bit higher via happenstance. You can see the quality in the Stuff Plus number, though. Nearly 10 points above average for the rookie. So there is definitely upside in the long term. It's just against a good enough Guardians lineup. I don't know that we want to chase it when the strikeout stuff hasn't really translated yet. Eventually, we're going to be there with this pitcher, though. I'm a believer. Slate Ciccone at 78-72, just looking like a target for Tigers bats. We've got 3 players in the Tigers lineup over the magic number for home run upside. We've got another couple with at least good mid-board pop. So definitely intrigued by the Tigers today. 4.41 implied total for them. 4.18 on the Guardian side in an AL Central matchup. I like the Tigers here. I like them to kind of win this division pretty handily. If we're talking about Guardians bats, again, Mr. Kwan in the leadoff role, 4,500, 3,000. Not a bad price for a guy slashing 314, 373, 433. He's hit 4 home runs. He's stolen 7 bases. He's got a little bit of extra pop that he can find from time to time. But what we're really here for with this hitter is the hit tool, the on-base skills, the correlated scoring. And he's been providing that like crazy. 34% better than average via WRC plus for run creation. He's just affordable. Ana Martinez, 2,900 at second base. 26 on FanDuel at second base. 2 home runs on the board and 122 plate appearances, but a solid little slash line. 289, 314, 412. Probably some good results baked into that, considering the 268 xWOB under the covers. So we will probably see a decline coming. But right now, not really striking out. 17.2% strikeouts, 3.3% walks. So a lot of balls in play. They're not particularly well struck, but he's in a decent spot for correlated scoring. I just question the value of having him hitting second. It's another kind of funky decision for the 2 spot in this lineup in the real baseball sense. But for DFS, that's ideal to have him that cheap, directly correlated with your premium bats that you want. So I'm fine with it. Jose Ramirez for 55.36 is always in play. Against this pitcher, he's definitely got some upside. 7.80 in the home run model, 307, 364, 517 to start his year, 210 ISO. He's hit 9 homers. He's stolen 12 bases. You know who that looks like? Jose Ramirez. If you showed me that line, just take all of this side off of it and just show me this and ask me who that guy was, I would have immediately said Jose Ramirez. It's just him. Kyle Manzardo, 4,200 for a guy with a 15% barrel over 175 plate appearances, a solid chunk of batted ball events, walking 11.4% of the time while keeping strikeouts right around where they were last year. I like the upside. 212, 303, 470 is obviously unimpressive as a slash line, but 10 home runs in 175 chances, not bad. 258 ISO, a 330 xWOBA supporting the idea of additional upside to come, creating runs 15% better than average. He's a strikeout target, but Jackson Job's not finding the Ks this year. He's walking way too many hitters. Manzardo's got the upside to either reach first base or drive in guys who have reached first base ahead of him. Carlos Santana, Daniel Schneemann, Gabriel Arias, Bo Naylor, and my guy Nolan Jones down lineup. There's playability through that stretch. 6 home runs apiece on the board for Santana and Schneemann so far. Both guys are cheap, 37-36. You've got the positional conflict between Manzardo and Santana on the DraftKings slate. On FanDuel, you can play both guys for cheap next to each other. Santana's got the upside for on base, still a 345 on base. His created runs 8% better than average, despite the underwhelming slash line. 7.7% barrels, 40.8% hard hits. Looks nearly identical to where he was last year. There's 20 home run upside still. 18% strikeouts, 13% walks. Kind of jibes with this. So I like the upside there. Schneemann, more a mix and match type. I mentioned it yesterday. The 6 home runs, a little bit of an outlier for him. So is the 14.3% barrels, which is where the 6 home runs have come from. 4.8%, 38.1% hard hits last year. Probably more of the hitter that this guy really is. But for a cheap price at second base, always playable. I would probably go Martinez for the cheaper price and the better spot in the lineup between the 2 second basemen on DraftKings. But Schneemann's in play. Arias at 34. 9.2% barrels, 4 home runs on the season. 132 ISO is kind of underwhelming. 302 xWOB, the same thing. But there's at least decent contact ability there. So if you're just home run hunting, if you're throwing some darts at shortstop, it's not an ideal position to do that with. I'd rather have it at second like on FanDuel, but I think he's playable. Naylor, you're just home run hunting from the catcher spot, but he's very cheap at 3,000. It's doable. 6 home runs on the board at 205 ISO. So let's call it home run and extra base hit hunting. But you're getting a 0 out of Bo Naylor a lot of the time as well. He has pushed walks up a little bit this year. It's made him a little bit more interesting, but it's only resulted in a 292 on base, 96 WRC plus. And then Nolan Jones continuing to scuffle, 186, 279, 292, but I continue to be a believer. That contact tells me that there's a real hitter in there, and the guy that went 20-20 a couple years ago in 400 and some odd plate appearances is the real version of this hitter. 10.3% barrels, 51.3% hard hits is difficult to argue with. 28.5% strikeouts, but 11.5% walks. And technically those strikeouts are down while the walks have kind of sustained. It's a good indicator. But just 186, 279, 292 is obviously difficult. 333 xWOB as a tiebreaker, though, tells us we're going up. At some point, this is going to click. Going up against a gettable right now, righty. He's on the board. I don't mind him as a wraparound, too, given that skill set. Let's say you went catcher Nolan Jones, Ana Martinez at second, obviously Jose Ramirez, and then apologies to Steven Kwan. I'll go to the less expensive first baseman at 42. So now I've got Martinez, Ramirez, Manzardo, Naylor, and Jones, which admittedly some flawed numbers in there, but that prices me at $3,700 apiece, $3,640 apiece for my 5-man. Not bad for one that includes several of their best hitters and one superstar. That's not bad. As a 3-man, if you just wanted to like 3-man the top there, that's playable. $4,300 a piece, and it includes Kwan and Ramirez. Same thing with that group. If you did that, it's around the same price. Or if you went like that and took even further of a discount in your 3-man, $4,033 a piece. It includes Carlos Santana, Anel Martinez, and Jose Ramirez. That's not a bad 3-man. So there's some purchasing power in the Guardians, both as a 5-man and as a 3-man. But the team between the two that I like better is the Tigers. Again, we're showing a lot of power here. The home run pick of the day did come from the Tigers once again. It is not Kerry Carpenter, who's carrying a 12.38 and all the power in the world from the left side. I was very tempted to make a Kerry, but I used him just the other day. I didn't want to go back to it. 41.29 for a guy with 10 home runs, a 221 ISO, a 363 xWOBA. Too cheap by a wide margin. Going up against Slade Ciccone, who has a 5% home run rate, but only in one start, 5 innings. So we can't really count that. If we counted that, we would have to count his 40% strikeout rate against a 0% walk rate. And I don't want to do that. Last year, Ciccone in 77 innings over 13 starts, a 4.73% home run rate allowed, 10.3% barrels on a 17.9 degree average launch, struck out under 20%, didn't walk anybody really, 5% walks. This ratio is fine for a back-end starter. But a 6.66 ERA with a 4.70 xFIP, a 1.42 whip. There's too many guys on base, even with that low walk rate. Similar numbers the year before with a slightly better home run rate, but that home run rate is entirely happenstance. There is no difference here. These are honestly worse numbers as far as the contact. He just got away with it a little bit more. And there's not a ton of daylight between that number and that number. This is a pitcher who is vulnerable to the home run. That's why I don't think he's overly appealing, even at 78, 72. He can have decent strikeout games. 18-9 again against a 5% walk rate is fine. 9% swinging, 26.4% CSW, just an 18% the year before that in a small sample. 3.6% walks, 7.7% swinging. So needs to do some work like he did in that 5 innings in the most recent one where he induced an 18.2% swinging strike rate. That was 5 innings against the Reds at Cincinnati. He struck out 8, but he allowed a home run, 3 earned runs on 5 hits to 20 hitters. I think we're just looking at 5 pretty weak innings from Slade Ciccone here. So much more interested in these Tigers bats. Glaber at 45-34, playable. 277, 358, 426. A lot of production out of Glaber this year. Ridiculously sub 10% strikeout rate, pushing a 10% walk. When Glaber's doing that, you're getting the good version of Gleyber Torres. 4,400, 3,400. He's differently priced across sites. Like a little better on the DraftKings slate. Would play him in Tiger stacks on FanDuel at 34, though, because everybody else is cheap. Colt Keith for 28-26 across sites with second base eligibility on both. A reasonable alternative. If you can't reach the Glaber price, pay for Colt Keith hitting third. That is not a bad option. 4 home runs on the board for him in 146 plate appearances. Limited numbers as far as the slash line, as far as the results, but a standout 367 xWOBA. He's created runs at right at league average at 100, walking 14.4% of the time, 8.5% barrel rate, starting to look more like the guy, even with the poor results in the slash line that we saw coming up through the minors. If Colt Keith suddenly clicks for this team, they're going to even go to another higher level, as good as they've been. Very playable for our purposes. Dylan Dingler, 38-26, not a bad option. 4 home runs, slashing 297, 322, 457, a killer 349 xWOBA, making premium contact galore at 9.1, 45.5, only 3,800, cleaning up today against a homer-prone pitcher. Love the upside for Dylan Dingler. 10.93 in the home run model. He is also not the home run pick of the day. I'm just noticing now no Riley Green in the lineup today. That's noteworthy. Their best bat out of the lineup. It does diminish it slightly, but I still love the upside that's on display right here in what we're looking at. So even with no Riley Green, I like the upside, but that obviously would have been a nice bat to have. $4,400, $3,200 Spencer Torkelson, 15.17 in the home run model to lead the team and to make him the home run pick of the day. Come on down, Torque. He's got 12 on the season, a 278 ISO, 387 xWOBA, 14.6% barrel rate. Love the upside against a pitcher who gives up barrels, who gives up fly balls, who gives up exit velo and home runs. Makes a lot of sense to me to go to the big guy. That is a good price, too, for the season he's had so far. 244, 355, 523. He's been a monster. Trey Sweeney, 33-27, hasn't been that good, but does have decent pedigree. 4 home runs, 2 steals, mix and match piece at worst. Just a 291 xWOB is kind of glaring. We need to make some quick improvements with Sweeney, but there's enough there. 6.6% barrel's not terrible, drawn a 9% walk. As a bolt-on part for cheap, not bad. It's just not the greatest way to fill shortstop. Andy Banez, Akil Baddoo, and then resurgent Javi Baez down lineup. I'll give you Banez and Baddoo the mix and match guy tag. Baddoo did have in a small sample last year. How many was that? 82 plate appearances. Didn't have a good slash line, hit 2 home runs, did have interesting contact numbers, but that's too small a sample to really care about that. 2 years ago, he hit 11 home runs, stole 14 bags in a half a season. The year before that, 2 homers, 9 steals in a quarter of a season. That's what I mean when I say mix and match level talent. He's cheap, but on DraftKings at 3, not necessarily cheap enough. FanDuel made him the dead min. Javi at 42-29, slashing 292, 329, 472, 6 homers, making okay contact, not killer contact, but he's cut strikeouts. He doesn't walk. So they're buying a lot of contact. There's quality there. I'll give it to him. As a wraparound guy, it's not completely terrible. 329 on base this year. I went like 1, 2. Obviously, we want Torque at first. Could still go Keith at second, though, for 28. I was going to do it with Javi bolted on as the wraparound, but first I want to do what's just the top 5, the straight line stack. Oh, no, you can't because you got 2 second basemen, 2 first basemen. So, all right, so let's go that way. We'll leave Glaber out at 45, and we'll take Javi from the wraparound. So we've got 9, 1, 3, 4, 5, and all their power. And it's 38.60, so 3,900 a man to target Slade Ciccone with one of the better lineups in baseball, even without their best hitter. That's just cheap. It's easy to do. So, yeah, I think you can play some Javi as the wraparound. If you went to Baddoo in that role for even cheaper and just chase a little bit of potential upside, that gets you at 36, and you could honestly, in that scenario, go to Glaber for a higher price and keep it under 4,000 on the nose, basically 39.60. Affordable Tigers bats with some upside showing against a gettable pitcher. I like it. Tigers, Guardians. Again, neither pitcher really on the board. Lot of chat going on. Trying to catch up. Cub says Javi too expensive, and he would know. Definitely interested in the Tigers. Power says my big lineup is a clean 4-3-1 and 2 pay up SP1s. Let's go. I like it. I like the sound of that, buddy. Padres and the Braves. I'm sure we've got lineups here. We do. Hit the like button for the return of Ronald Acuna. If you haven't done that already, let's just pretend that you're liking Ronnie coming back to baseball. And it has nothing to do with this show because I like Ronnie coming back to baseball. I like Ronnie and his impact on this Braves lineup that is just not the same without him in that leadoff spot. You can see what he does to their power numbers. As mentioned, all 4 of the top hitters now above the magic number pretty appreciably. 11.97 for Acuna in his season debut leads the team because he is that good. He was on fire through his minor league rehab. Not that you wouldn't expect him to crush minor league pitching, but he's literally one of the best players on the planet. 3,700 is honestly slightly discounted on FanDuel. 55 on DraftKings. He returns as their most highly priced player on both sites, but those numbers are slightly cheap for who this guy is. If you've forgotten, if you've never watched baseball before, ignore the 222 plate appearances that were just kind of mediocre last year. 4 home runs, 16 steals before he got hurt, 250, 351, 365, was creating runs 5% better than average, and focus on the 41 home runs, 73 stolen bases from the year before, while slashing 337, 416, 596 with a 258 ISO, 70% better than average for run creation. 15 homers, 29 steals, over 533 in an up and down season with some injuries marring it the year before that. This is, I promise, one of the best players on the planet when he's healthy. Absolutely interested in him today. Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Marcell Ozuna, definitely a very, very solid quartet of hitters on any site on FanDuel for the top 4. 33.75 a piece, so 3,400 a piece. It's pricey, but it could honestly be a little bit higher. And it's not unplayably pricey the way things come together on FanDuel this year. So I'm definitely interested there. They're going up against a Nick Pivetta who has been performing at a high level this year. 50 and a third over 9 starts. He's got a 28.3% strikeout, just 7.5% walks, 2.86 ERA, but a 3.62 xFIP is almost a full run higher. Sub 1 whip is fantastic. 11.9% swinging strikes. Nothing to argue with any of that. What I'll take some issue with, though, is this. 2.53% home runs, but that's come on a 20.3 degree average launch, 11.9% barrels, 41% hard hits. The exit velo has saved him on some of those, 88.8. If that was above 90, this would be above 4 pretty definitely. Last year, on very similar contact numbers, you can see the happenstance in between. This year, his contact has actually been worse than it was last year. Barrels at 9.8, this year 11.9. Hard hits lower. Exit velo technically a little higher. That's been the difference. 4.71% home runs. That's bad. That's target level bad. Year before, 3.92 on numbers that look very similar to this year, just with a little bit more exit velo. So there's a lot of happenstance against one of the hardest hitting lineups in baseball. That could come out to really, really burn Nick Pivetta shares here. At 10-3, at 9-6. That's why I'm not really comfortable with Nick Pivetta today. Braves coming in with a 4.3 implied total. That's telling you kind of at those prices, you kind of want to stay away. I think he should be sub 10 on DraftKings. I think he should be more in the low 9s, high 8s on FanDuel. It's really who this pitcher actually is. So I don't want to pay a tax for an overperforming Nick Pivetta against a lineup that we have renewed fear of. I think he's playable. It wouldn't stun me if he had a good game, but I think there's very obvious downside. Chris Sale for cheaper on DraftKings. It's kind of inexplicable that he'd be cheaper. He's pitching to a 3.62 ERA with a 3.03 xFIP. He's striking out 30.4% while walking 6.3%, inducing a 14.4% swinging strike. His 2.53% home run rate is exactly identical to Pivetta's, but his is entirely believable. It's Chris Sale. There's a difference there. And the $900 price difference is definitely swung in the wrong direction. Now, Sale's going up against a very low strikeout Padres team, which creates a little bit of downside for him, but that's factored into his slate leading projections. FanDuel got it right, 10-4 versus 9-6. They priced Pivetta too high, but Sale, at least they got on the correct side of that. DraftKings did you a favor. More than talented enough to find a few bonus Ks against this team. Collective version of the Padres, though, 17.7% strikeout rate. It's difficult to argue with. 18-6 for this group of hitters last year. Some of that is helped by the absurdly low number that Luis Arraez puts on the board. If you're averaging in a 2.2, that's going to do you some favors. There are targetable 1-in-5, 1-in-4 type hitters throughout this lineup. So it's not quite as good as it might look like. If we take Arise out of the equation, and obviously he's there, that jumps to 19.7. So that's a 2 percentage point jump if you just ignore Arise. He's very likely to put the ball in play a few times. He's slashing 304, 339, 439. He's hit 3 oddball home runs. Everybody wants to be Steven Kwan all of a sudden. 294 xWOBA is glaringly low, but he is just an average put the ball in play hitter. He doesn't barrel the ball, 0% barrel rate, 16.4% hard hits. So xWOBA is never really going to love a hitter like this, but we know that he's very functional. And honestly, at 39.28, he's completely miscast in the 2 role and at first base, but there is upside there in those prices. Second base on FanDuel is a lot more functional. Fernando Tatis, 14.5% barrels, superstar caliber numbers, 12 home runs, 8 steals, a 409 xWOBA under his already fantastic numbers, 240 ISO, creating runs 48% better than average. Dude's just a superstar. If you're going to this team, you're putting Fernando Tatis into your lineups. Manny Machado at 49 is underpriced for his quality, and it's continuing to be that. 11% barrels, 54.1% hard hits, not striking out, drawing walks, slashing 305, 374, 441. 136 ISO, surprising given the contact. The 396 xWOBA tells us not to be worried about that. Just some happenstance in there. He could be having a even better season than he is, given the contact, given the wonkiness of where those extra base hit, the potential extra base hits have landed. Xander Bogaerts at just 36.29. Getting on at a 328 clip is somewhat effective. 326 xWOBA is just right in line with that. Just a 94 WRC plus, 8 steals, 3 home runs. Not really striking out, drawing some walks, but those strikeouts are up from 17-1 last year, 16-5 the year before. The walks have gone up with it. The premium contact in the barrel rate is down, but the hard hits are up over the last 2 years. There's some back and forth in what we actually think right now of Bogey. At 36, at 29, especially at second base on FanDuel, he's easily playable if you're stacking this team. But it's not an appealing day to stack pods against Chris Sale with a 3.29 implied total on their end. Gavin Sheets having a good year. But everything I just said about not wanting to target Chris Sale is the thing that you think about immediately. Plus, lefty-lefty against this lefty, not ideal. Sheets has put good bat on ball, cheap first base and outfield eligibility, 8 home runs on the board at 211 ISO, a 133 WRC plus. He's been one of their better hitters all year, but it's very difficult to trust any kind of upside against Chris Sale. He also strikes out at a 26.4 rate and doesn't draw walks. Jose Iglesias, Elias Diaz, Brendan Lockridge down lineup, mix and match pieces on any given slate. And when you're targeting Chris Sale, you don't really want to do it with those hitters. At best, they can help average down with using one guy from that group. So the Braves, again, that 4-man group is outrageous at any price. The DraftKings 4-man average is 47.25. And then I'll grab a $4,000 Ozzy Albies at second, 45.80. I'll grab those 4 and Michael Harris at 35, 44.80. So 4,500 apiece. And it includes Acuna, Riley, Olsen, and Ozuna against a homer-prone pitcher. There is upside there. They're not as expensive as they ought to be. The Vegas total, honestly, could be a little bit higher. There's a little bit of respect for what Pivetta has done rather than who he actually is in that number. Multiple guys with double-digit barrels going down the lineup. Multiple guys in the 50% hard hit range with other guys in the mid-40s. This is a good Braves lineup regardless of their results. 8 home runs on the board for Austin Riley should honestly be higher. Just a 158 ISO should be higher given that premium contact. 341 xWOBA, 110 WRC plus. Matty Olson's hit 11 home runs. Big lefty bat, 19.5% barrels, 57.1% hard hits. Nearly unrivaled quality of contact. That is an excellent left-handed bat to throw at this pitcher. Love the upside, 11.76 in the home run model. 9 home runs on the board for Ozuna, who's underperformed the slash line in the average department, but everything else looks exactly like the Marcell Ozuna we've gotten over the last few seasons. Power galore. 278 is a fine average these days anyway, and we don't really care about batting average, but he's been a 300 hitter if you care. He's getting on base, more importantly, at a 426 clip this year, creating runs at a 56% better than average clip, a 418 xWOBA to lead the team and say that there's more to come and a normalization in the positive sense to come. Verdugo, just not good. Hitting 5th now, not leading off anymore because Acuna's back. He's a mix and match quality outfielder. He doesn't strike out that much. He draws a fair amount of walks, but he doesn't have that much power. Line drive hitter. He's very meh and Michael Harris should be hitting that spot, and Verdugo should be hitting 8th. But Harris has been underperforming so far this season. Sean Murphy, very appealing, 4,400, 2,800 on FanDuel. 28 for him and 32 for Olsen as a first base util combo. Not bad at all. Murph's hit 8 home runs with a 269 ISO, a 330 xWOBA, 13.4% barrel rate, over 119 plate appearances. It's tremendous. Albies and Harris have underperformed. It's getting difficult to see them here. Sub 300 on base, most importantly for both hitters. Very below average WRC plus numbers. Difficult to trust in their premium contact numbers, which are down across the board for both of these hitters. Strikeouts are around where they ought to be, / down a little bit, but neither guy walks all that much. So it's difficult for them to find upside. But given what we know about these hitters, given what should be an uptick in just everything overall for this lineup, I think now's the time to get on board with cheap, under-owned Ozzie Albies, cheap, under-owned Michael Harris. And then Nick Allen is a pretty good defender. I got to use a pitcher at some point. Chris Sale, Braves bats. Pods bats, and then Nick Pivetta. I do think you could justify, actually, it's probably Pivetta above the Padres bats, honestly. It's probably Sale, Braves, Pivetta, Padres bats. Don't really like targeting Chris Sale. Rangers and the White Sox. All these lineups are in. We get the site updated as soon as the show is over. So like 2 hours from now. We'll also get the NBA and NHL projections up on the site. I've got them in the model. I just have to go through and do my spot checking. Should take like 10 minutes once the show's over. All right. Molly, 96-91. Totally usable here. 18.8% strikeout rate, 8.5% walks. Both those numbers, one's too low, one's too high. 1.47 ERA, completely betrayed by the 4.05 xFIP. That's the real Tyler Molly. But a sub-1 whip so far is inducing an okay 10.2% swinging strike rate. Not finding enough on the CSW at 25.9, but he hasn't really given up any premium contact. Hasn't been bad for power, and it's a non-threatening White Sox lineup. 3.44 implied total. Not a bad option at 96-91. Just attack the White Sox. When in doubt, target the White Sox. It's easy enough. It's not guaranteed that he's going to come through, given the low strikeout numbers, given what his true runs allowed number is. You do have a couple pesky hitters in Chase Meador off the top of the lineup with his stellar ability to get on base, put the ball in play, followed by Mike Tauchman, who is also a very, very good on-base option. You get Miguel Vargas, whose 6 home runs are good, but the 234, 313, 398 is not particularly good. You get Andrew Benintendi, who's just not good at all. You get a completely deficient version of Luis Robert in the 5 spot now. So after the 2 pesky guys up at the top, it immediately becomes a very gettable lineup. And there's no reason to be threatened by Chase Meador, Mike Tauchman reaching first base if nobody's driving him in. So I think Molly is easy to play, especially at 91 on FanDuel. That feels a little bit generous. Rangers bats against Sean Burke. Burke is pitching to a 4.69 ERA with a 5.69 xFIP. He's walked 12.5% against a 15% strikeout rate. If the Rangers are going to succeed against anybody, it should be this guy. 11.7% barrels, 40.9% hard hits, 4.13% home runs allowed. Not inducing swinging strikes, not throwing strikes. The Rangers have just been so bad this year for runs. It's been so difficult to trust. Hopefully things turn for this team once Corey Seager's back. There are good bats here. Wyatt Langford's a very good player, 5,000, 3,500. He's hit 9 home runs. He's stolen 10 bases for fantasy. That's not bad. 245, 333, 470. Just a 225 ISO is very good. But it's been limited as far as the results, even for him. 15% barrels, 46% hard hits. Craney runs 27% better than average. It's a very good option to throw at Sean Burke, even with some struggles. Josh Young at just 3,600, 3,100 from the heart of the lineup is very appealing. 7 home runs on the board. He's slashing 284, 315, 471, 340 xWOBA. Craney runs 21% better than average. It's been one of their better bats since rejoining the team. Josh Smith is a mix and match caliber player who can give you stretches of overperformance followed by languishing into bad levels. Right now, 282, 348, 408, creating runs 16% better than average with numbers that will be on the decline, but he's playable hitting second. It's just 4,500, first base, shortstop, not ideal. 27 on FanDuel at any position is a little bit more viable. Sam Haggerty's given you a good 32 plate appearances out of the leadoff role, just 16 last year. Back in 2022, he made 201 plate appearances, /256, 335, 403. He's just this kind of a guy. 5 home runs in that sample. He's all right. He's put decent bat on ball. He's in a good spot in the lineup. He's not at all expensive against a terrible pitcher. So very playable in stacks. Individually, he's not overly appealing. But at 2,300, when I could plunk him at second base on FanDuel or in the outfield, 36 just as in the outfield on DraftKings, he's more just another outfielder here. But on a day where you do kind of want to get some Rangers in your life, he does provide direct, cheap correlation with those guys. It's just these guys are also cheap. Jake Berger at 33, at least making good contact when he connects. Right now, it's resulted in 221, 260, 404. Just a 184 ISO, 16 points below average for run creation, a lot of strikeouts, no walks. But this is all you really need to see from Berger to know that you can at least throw some darts. 10.72 to lead the team in the home run model against a homer-prone, high frequency of contact pitcher. Should be a good get-right day for the Jake Bergers of the world here. Jock is very firmly on that list. That should be the Jock list, actually. 2,400 on DraftKings, 2,500 with outfield eligibility on FanDuel. 134, 270, 244, 2 home runs. None of this looks like Jock Peterson. Monster potential for a bounce back day, even if it's just for a day. Today's the day. If you've been playing any Jock Peterson all season, today's the day that you don't want to be skipping him. You'll kick yourself if you did. It's a great spot for him. Sub 20% strikeouts, 14.1% walks in his terrible season so far is at least something to cling to. And we just know what the history against weak righties looks like with this hitter. Still an 8.7% barrel, 43.5% hard hits. In a vacuum, those are not terrible. Jonah Heim, tons of affordable catcher upside at 35, 28 on FanDuel. He's hit 6 home runs this year. He's got a 105 WRC+. Adolis Garcia is another player who's really, really struggling in defiance of excellent premium contact. 14.4% barrels, 47.7% hard hits. It's resulted in just 215, 267, 373. That's inexplicably low at this point. He's down to 4,000 on DraftKings, 29 on FanDuel. Easily playable. Marcus Semien now in the 9 spot. He's gone all the way around the lineup. 3,200, 2,800, slashing 180, 271, 236, and kind of difficult to envision. I do think you can play him. He fits in at second base. He's not expensive. His strikeouts are way up. His walks are only up a little bit. There's no real positives to point to outside of the career history, but at least you're not paying a tax for what he did a couple years ago. White Sox bats if you're going there. Chase Meadroth is an absolute priority. 301, 381, 376. He is the table setter for this team. He's the guy who's going to score the runs if anybody else happens to come through and do their job. He's the only guy who reliably does his job. He's stolen 8 bags. He scored 15 runs. He is a good player. Everybody else, kind of weak. Even Lubob this year. Over 187 plate appearances. He's at least barreled the ball 12.7% of the time, 44.5% walk rate. 29.9 on the strikeouts is technically down from last year while pushing the walk rate up to nearly double the last 2 seasons. But it's resulted in 178, 270, 294, 5 home runs. At least he's stolen 17 bases to keep his fantasy scoring alive somewhat. It's been really difficult to trust. We need to get him out of Chicago. Benintendi's just bad. He has barreled 11.6% of his batted ball events. He's hit 5 home runs, but he's slashing 224, 298, 400. And we have seen enough of this hitter over time to know that the power isn't actually real that he's shown this season and to know that we don't really want him. He's cleaning up. He's cheap. If you go to the White Sox, you can definitely roster him in a stack, but he is in no way appealing. Joshua Palacio, same thing. Cheap barrels over 100 plate appearances has resulted in 218, 320, 333 on 91 WRC+, a 115 ISO, just 2 oddball home runs. Edgar Caro has put okay bat on ball in the hard hit sense. 48.6% is a good number. He hasn't struck out. He has drawn walks and gotten to first base. It's just once he gets to first base, everything is stopped around him because nobody's driving him in. 94 WRC+. He scored 6 runs despite getting on at a 354 clip over 99 plate appearances. That's just stupid. That's how bad this team is. Lennon Sosa, Josh Rojas, replacement level parts at the bottom of the lineup. Sosa at least give you a little bit, 272, 289, 395. It's a terrible on base, 9 points below average for run creation, 4 home runs. Technically one of their better bats this year, but that's how bad this team is. Tyler Mahle, Rangers bats that I don't really trust, but they're very much in play. And then really, honestly, it's nothing from the White Sox. But if you do have to rust or something, it's probably a 3-man with bats, and it's probably Meadroth, Tauchman, and an underperforming Lubob. Tauchman, by the way, I mentioned that he's good at getting on base, but I didn't actually highlight it. 350 plate appearances last year, got on in a 357 clip. Creator runs 11% better than average. 363 on base over 401 the year before that. Creator runs 7% better than average. That's what he does. But this is very much a Texas kind of a day in Chicago. Royals and the Twins. It's going to be a nice, easy update at the end of the show. Basically, all the lineups confirmed now. I am somewhat interested in Noah Cameron here. Facing a gettable enough Twins team. It's just 8,500 doesn't really work. 81 on FanDuel, a little bit better. Where is it? So just 3 strikeouts in each of his first 2 games. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, 6 1/3 in both starts. 12 2/3 overall. 1 earned run combined. 3 hits combined. Facing the Cards and the Rays. 2 mid-board type teams, but not the White Sox and the Rockies. 0.71 ERA, but a notable 5.03 xFIP. So that probably doesn't hold. Just 13% strikeouts, obviously not good. 10.9% walks. That comes from 5 walks in the first game. He walked 0 in the second game. So the proof, whatever, is probably somewhere around like a 6-8% walk rate, an average-ish kind of a walk rate. Stuff Plus doesn't really love the arsenal. He induced just an 8.1% swinging and 26.3% CSW. There are some free swingers in this Twins lineup. You got some guys who are underperforming their ability at the plate to avoid strikeouts. You got some guys who are overperforming it in small samples. So for them, it's probably something like a 20.3, 21% strikeout rate. It's a gettable team. But with him, I think we're just kind of chasing the idea of pitching into the 7th inning, and maybe we get away with another clean start because the Twins, again, this version of the lineup, that WRC plus for the 9-man averages to 90. So their 9-man WRC plus is 10 points below average for run creation. Only 3 hitters in that lineup are positive at all. So it's a gettable enough Twins team. They're pulling a 4.39 implied total. Vegas is chasing some of the contact that Cameron's probably going to allow here. There's a little bit of power in this lineup for sure. There are some good right-handed bats, but everybody's kind of scuffled this season. So I think Cameron, more so as an $8,100 discounted player on FanDuel, given the upside that we've seen twice now for the potential for a quality start, he's in play. It's just what happens with the strikeout number. On DraftKings, that's a much more challenging 8,500 because it's not an ideal SP2 price, obviously. He rates in kind of upper middle part of the board. But I think you probably would prefer a $7,200 discount on Clark Schmidt, even at Coors Field. You most certainly prefer $8,200 for Kikuchi against the Marlins. He's in the mix, but looser. 99, 10,000 for Pablo Lopez going up against a Royals team that's pulling just a 3.21 implied total against. Got to at least consider it. He's pitched well this season, 2.40 ERA, a 3.08 xFIP, 27% strikeouts again, or nearly 28 against just a 5% walk, 12.2% swinging strikes. Made some strides so far from the very good numbers that he put up last year. I don't dislike the pitcher at all. It's just I do like this Royals lineup, and I respect their ability to avoid the strikeout, put high-quality balls in play. The power at some point I do think is going to come around. The quality of Vinny Pasquantino at some point I do think is going to come around. But it's believable enough with a very good pitcher at 99, at 10,000, not quite the highest priced pitcher on the slate. It's very believable here. So I think Pablo shares are easily justifiable. Getting into the mix with Jonathan India, who's still lingering at 1 home run and no stolen bases. Just a 327 on base is definitely something to watch. We're here for his on base percentage. We're here for his correlated scoring. 3,100 at second base, 2,700 at second base is where you want him. Hasn't been the good version of Jonathan India basically all season for this team, though. Bobby Witt at 57-38, slashing 305, 368, 508. Don't overthink it. It's Bobby Witt. It's easy to use. As an expensive one-off, you can go there. He's got a 10-plus in the home run model to lead the team today. Easy enough to use Bobby Witt in any circumstance. Vinny has gotten just cheap, 36-29. For the quality that we know is in there over the last couple of seasons, I'll still buy. It helps average down the pricing of everybody around him who's already cheap outside of Witt. He's hit 8 home runs. The power's actually been increased a little bit. The barrels are up. The hard hits are slightly down. The actual frequency of contact is where we've lost a little bit. 12.8% strikeouts down and up to 19%. He's also slipped a little bit for walks as he continues to try and find his timing. But I mean, this is a guy who last couple seasons has put just excellent quality bat on ball. 262, 315, 446 with 19 homers last year. Created runs 8% better than average. Extreme low strikeout. Medium walk, so he's constantly putting the ball in play, and that came on a 7.1% barrel, 45.8% hard hit. So it's a high quality, high frequency of balls in play when he's going right, and we've been talking for a long time about chasing this power uptick that we are actually getting now. So I continue to think we normalize around the edges with Pasquantino. Sal Perez, everything is right except for the results with Sal. 13.8% barrels, 45.5% hard hits, just 3 home runs, just a 122 ISO, but a 359 xWOBA. One of the better buy low targets in season long, in my opinion. Michael Garcia, 46% hard hits, slashing 315, 377, 483 with 5 homers and 10 steals. Creating runs 40% better than average over 200 plate appearances exactly. I love the uptick in performance from him. He's been one of their best players this season. Drew Waters, mix and match guy, slashing 281, 322, 404. 1% better than average creating runs, but should slip given the 281 xWOBA. 78 plate appearances from Kevin Biggio. I've seen enough. I've seen enough before those 78 plate appearances to know that he's not good. At best, a mix and match guy. He's just cheap. Michael Massey is cheap with some talent, underperforming his talent so far this year, but 5.34 in the home run model, given his history with some okay barrel rates that have been basically cut in half so far this year. I'm still a believer, considering that he's striking out right around the same level he was last year. We should see some more bat on ball from this player. He's a cheap option at second base in an extended run of Royal stacks, but we're probably not building with the Royals that way today. And then Kyle Isbell just hits at the bottom of the lineup. He's fine, 286, 290, 445, but he's in no way reliable. Everybody on the Twins is pretty cheap today. Your average price across the 9-man is $3,200 on DraftKings. That's silly. FanDuel, $2,600. $4.39 implied total. Obviously, you can chase that against the rookie here. I think there's enough upside for a couple of these righties. Royce Lewis has badly underperformed his talent levels over 51 plate appearances so far this year, but we know what that talent can look like when he's on the field. He hasn't really struck out much, which is a nice uptick, 22.8 down to 15.7 so far in the small sample. He just hasn't found his barrels, hasn't really found his timing yet. 191, 255, 298, just 1 home run. All of that should eventually go up. Jeffers has been pretty good. 7.7% barrels, 45.2% hard hits. He's slashing 273, 364, 409. Creating runs 24% better than average. And the 362 xWOBA tells us we should see a little bit more uptick in performance. He's been really good, and he's downright interesting considering that he's a catcher in the leadoff spot. At 3,700, that's got a lot of power to it where you have to play that position because he sees a little bit of an uptick in plate appearance potential versus a lot of catchers who hit 5th, who hit 8th. So that's valuable at 37. Not a bad mark, 5.85 in the home run model. He's more than halfway to the magic number. Trevor Larnach, 3,600, 43.3% hard hits. That number's down slightly from last year. More notably, the barrels are down a little bit. He's hit 7 home runs over 200 plate appearances, just a 164 ISO. He's a better power bat than this, but he hasn't been bad. Still getting on at a 327 clip, a 326 xWOBA to support a little bit of increased upside, 111 WRC plus. Carlos Correa back in the lineup, 34.25. Him and Byron Buxton running into each other is like the ultimate collision of misfortune for the Twins. two completely injury-prone guys. But Correa made it back first, slashing just 236, 274, 331, 2 home runs on the board. Mediocre contact numbers, down significantly from last year when he had a fantastic half a season that I won't pull up again. But I think we do see the bounce back in the long term. There's not much to support it in these 157 plate appearances outside of just a little faith in knowing who this hitter is. So I expect the next 150 plate appearances to be better for Correa. Now he's just cheap. Ty France at first base is a mix and match quality first baseman. We talked about that from the beginning of the season when he got off to a good start. He's still holding on to those same 3 home runs, 253, 319, 353. This looks more like who Ty France really is. Brooks Lee, Jonah Bride, Harrison Bader, and Willie Castro going down the lineup. Basically all mix and match pieces. Does support a little bit of the upside for Noah Cameron, in my opinion. Lee slashing 235, 287, 370, 205, 272, 229 for Jonah Bride, who's at best a mix and match guy where you're hoping for a little bit of premium contact, but rarely ever get it. 4 home runs, 5 steals with a decent slash line from Harrison Bader, but we know that slash is going to come down. A 300 xWOBA kind of agrees with that. He's overperformed his talent so far. Willie Castro is the more interesting guy from the bottom of the lineup, in my opinion, given what we've seen from him over the last couple of seasons, but he's also underperformed his talent. He's just cheap. On DraftKings at 3,000, he's just another outfielder. On FanDuel, given the multi-position for only 26, I feel like there's a little value in moving him around within twin stacks, but he's in no way a reason to go to the Twins. Last year, he hit 12 homers, 14 steals, and 635. Created runs 8% better than average. 9 homers, 33 steals with a 109 WRC plus the year before that. That's who Willie Castro is. Pablo. Twins bats. Cameron. Royals bats. And it's probably Royals bats then Cameron at the DraftKings price. 81 is better on FanDuel. Mariners with Emerson Hancock going against the Astros with Ryan Gusto. As mentioned at the beginning, I think the question mark here is how deep is Gusto actually going to go in this game? 4.65 ERA with a 4.42 xFIP, 22.7% strikeouts against 9.2% walks. He's put way too many guys on base with that walk rate with the 1.52 whip, but he's induced a 12.1% swinging strike rate. He's got about league average stuff overall. He's given up too much premium contact. He's very cheap against a Mariners lineup that can absolutely find that premium contact that he allows, but also could get vulnerable to a decent swinging strike rate, or a very good swinging strike rate, actually. An okay results-based strikeout number. He's got, if memory, can I find that quickly? Memory serves, he's got one of the better whiff rates on his four-seamer. Maybe I'm wrong. No, that wasn't it. The hell was the thing? It's going to take me way too long to find the thing that's sticking in my head. There was something standout about Ryan Gusto. I think it was around the four-seamer, but I can't remember what it was. It wasn't the whiff rate. I wish I could remember. I read too many of these just different pitching tweets and pitching notes, and every now and then they get scrambled. I think there's talent in Ryan Gusto at 62, 68. I do think that the Mariners are a threat to him, though. Again, with the high quality in that in their offensive capabilities, you can see the top 6 hitters in that lineup are all above average VWRC plus, and pretty significantly so, with some very impressive home run totals for some of those guys. But you can also see a 23% strikeout rate collectively, a higher number from last year and the year before. So it's a flawed team that we do tend to attack. But in this ballpark, that will is not the same as attacking them in their home ballpark in Seattle. So probably more lingering downside for Ryan Gusto. But at the DraftKings $6,200 price, I think he's in your bargain bin. I think you can throw that dart a few times, and you can find 5 innings of success with a few strikeouts in your pocket at the end of the day. Wouldn't completely shock me. Again, last time out, just an inning of relief work. 2 1/3 in a meltdown of a start against Kansas City. We can't really count the depth because he gave up 7 earned runs to 18 hitters. Obviously, it was tragic there. 4 1/3 against Detroit in his start prior to that one. Gave up 2 earned runs. Again, only 4 1/3, but went 5 2/3 the outing before that on April 23rd. 5 innings the outing before that. That was like he had gotten stretched out to that point and then made a few starts and then has come kind of back down the other side of that. That's just why I don't know for sure whether we're getting a shot at 5, whether we're limited to like 4, 3 and change. So shaky option, but very cheap. Hancock, very cheap. And that's about it. 6.21 ERA, 4.22 xFIP, a 16.7% strikeout, 8% walks. He's just kind of a target for Astros bats, even with their underperformance this year, pulling a mid-4s total. I think we're just targeting him for offensive upside. Even at 58, it's difficult to really say he's a viable piece of the bargain bin. A lot of premium contact allowed. Home runs have gotten out against. 10 points below average via stuff plus. 60 2/3 in 12 starts, so averaging about 5 innings a start while giving up tons and tons of contact, tons of home runs, being 15 points below average via stuff plus, pitching to a 5.24 xFIP last year. Better numbers in 12 innings, 3 starts the year before that, but obviously we can't hang our hat on that one. So I think we're just targeting this pitcher with bats. We're probably safer just targeting Ryan Gusto with bats. But between the two, I think Gusto's the slightly more playable outside of the questionable innings. J.P. Crawford at the top of the Mariners lineup costs only $3,400 at shortstop. That's a little silly for a guy who's created runs, 30% better than average. He's slashing 262, 386, 366. He doesn't hit the ball particularly hard, 7.2% barrels, 36.8% hard hits, but he draws an absolute ton of walks against a pitcher with a high walk rate. He's getting on base at a ludicrous level that matches his full season number from 2 years ago when he was good. He's got a 352 xWOBA to support the idea that all of what we're seeing is real. I don't really understand why in the leadoff spot he would be $3,400. $2,800 on FanDuel is also pretty cheap. Doesn't give you a ton of counting stat upside. But if you're going to Mariners, that correlated scoring option to just put him at short and you're using a premium position, but you're doing it cheaply with an effective enough player, that's a really good buy. Jorge Polanco at 48 feels a little bit priced up for his performance. You are paying a bit of a tax for the 140 plate appearances that already happened. This has been him at his absolute apex. He will come down from these numbers, but maybe not by that much. Because everything about the 414 xWOBA, the premium contact that he's made, the ludicrously low strikeout rate for him is a massive improvement with like noteworthy things that you can say are sustainable potentially. So I do think we come down, but I don't know how far. And he's just really good right now. 31 on FanDuel at second base is absolutely ideal. 48 on DraftKings, again, a little bit priced up, but I'm kind of a believer. I was a believer in this player before last season, the last season and a half or so. Julio Rodriguez at 5,000, 3,300. 9 home runs on the board, a 355 xWOBA, 185 ISO, 111 WRC plus. A lot of the numbers not really where you'd want them, but he's pushed walks up while cutting strikeouts. He's making similar contact to last year, not, again, the level of the last 2 years. But if you just gave me those two numbers, I'd say, oh, that's a fine hitter. That's a good barrel rate. That's a good hard hit rate. It's just not superstar level. But he gets back there. We saw this exact same scenario unfold last year. Cal Raleigh's giving you all the barrels and hard hits you could possibly want. 16 home runs on the board. He's also slashing 253, 371, 579, a 392 xWOBA, creating around 71% better than average. Just one of the best catcher-eligible bats in all of baseball. 5,300, 3,800. You're paying a lot for him, but he justifies those prices more often than not. Randy Arozarena at 43.32 is nice and cheap for a guy getting on at a 366 clip, creating runs 31% better than average with power, with speed for some counting stat upside. 8.8% barrels and 50.4% hard hits represent an uptick from last year. I don't really get why he's quite as cheap as he is. Considering that and this, and you go, you obviously want Cal, you obviously want Julio. I think this sacrifice could come on Polanco's 48. It's not that it's unplayable, but right now from my 4-man there, I've got a $4,500 average. So that would obviously take us up slightly while still being very playable. But if I can grab Rowdy Tellez down here and his 18.8% barrels, his 45% hard hits, the 8 home runs that he's hit, the 252 ISO, the 354 xWOBA for 31 and use them at first, kind of do that. And now I'm at 42.20 a piece, so 4,300 a piece with some savings. from the roundup. That's pretty appealing. Leody Taveras at 3,300, 2,400 across sites, 2 homers, 8 steals. He's just good for some oddball, cheapo counting stats. Not really a premium bat by any measure. Miles Mastroboni, a mix and match player at the absolute best, and Ben Williamson is a good defender at third base. Jeremy Pena continues to overperform his talent, 298, 362, 447. We're due for a normalization over time, but he's always going to be playable. He's not bad. He's just average overall in reality. 6 home runs, 6 steals. Those probably will linger for a little while, and we'll be talking in another couple of weeks about see, I told you this was going to happen. But right now, very low strikeout of 13.7, putting a lot of balls in play, pretty solid hard hit rate. There are things to like about Jeremy Pena, and it's a good role leading off for this team and against a very, very gettable pitcher, 7.12 in the home run model. It's believable. Isaac Paredes in their home ballpark favors his power, 4,000, 3,300 with his ability to get on base, set the table, provide correlated scoring, provide individual upside. I like that option at those prices. That's not bad. FanDuel a little bit higher priced at 33, but highly playable, especially when you use the full stack with everybody else being cheaper than him. On DraftKings at 4,000, that's just downright cheap on its own. Jose Altuve up to 6 home runs all of a sudden, 4 stolen bases, 243, 296, 370. He has a long, long way to go, but the 2 home run night last night at least helps give us a little bit of faith. 8.06 in the home run model. The strikeouts at 17.5 are right in line with where they've been the last couple of seasons. The walks are not far off the mark. They're up from last year. They're down from 2 years ago, but it's at least a respectable walk rate. He's lost a little bit of barrel. He's lost some hard hit year over year into last year and again this year so far. We just have so much track record with this player that it's difficult to say that he's completely lost. And then we see outbursts like last night. We see some signs of potential quality. He's at worst very, very playable when hitting third at these prices. Second base and outfield eligible. I want him at second still. Jainer Diaz at 34.27 is up to 9.7% barrels, 40% hard hits, 5 home runs. We've talked about him quite a bit this season for anybody who's been here. You know that I like that hitter. I love the fact that you can get him hitting cleanup. He's only 3,400 with his excellent hit tool with a little bit of power, and the power's been on display a little bit this year. I like that option, and I continue to believe in a big, big turnaround coming. Christian Walker, sub Mendoza, 199, 268, 333. That is not who Christian Walker is over time. 5 home runs, light. 134 ISO, light. 310 ISO, or 310 xWOBA. Difficult to justify the return to form outside of the premium contact being right around where it's supposed to be. When he has connected, he's connected fairly well. Not that the results would necessarily tell you that. The reason that he's not showing better results is he's not connecting as frequently as he used to. He's also not walking as frequently as he used to. The Astros didn't get the player they were buying, but there's at least some reason to believe in at least something of a turnaround. At worst, I do think the power returns to form, given the contact. So he's always going to be playable, and he is another player who's just gotten cheap at 34.29. Victor Caratini at 3,000, where you have to play catcher, is definitely appealing. On FanDuel at 25, when you can have Jainer Diaz at 27, when you get $2,900 Christian Walker, it's a lot less valuable. I think he's playable over there, could be a difference maker, capable of hitting home runs, drives the ball very effectively over time. 287, 367, 448 is one of the better 100 plate appearance stretches of his career. 3 home runs, 137 WRC plus. Very playable, less of a priority on FanDuel. More of an alternative to Diaz on DraftKings, but I will say that gap is closed price-wise with him at 3 and Diaz all the way down to 34. That's basically at the beginning of the season, that was like a $5,000 catcher, and he was just not on the board really because he wasn't playing. Jake Myers having a great year, 166 plate appearances of quality. You're paying a bit of a tax at 36 at 28, even though those aren't high prices in a vacuum. That is a little bit of a tax on Jake Myers because he is not that good a hitter. Unless he's made dramatic improvements, which we've looked at a couple times. You can say he has via the strikeout and the walk rates in a small sample, but not really as far as how he actually connects with the ball. So I think a little bit of happenstance supporting Jake Myers so far. Cam Smith, pretty mediocre numbers, over 139. He's hit 3 home runs. Creating runs 3% better than average. You can give him credit for that. A double-digit walk rate is good, but 30% strikeouts. One of the bigger targets for whatever Emerson Hancock finds with his 16% strikeout rate. Mauricio Dubon, mix and match caliber player at the bottom of the lineup. You can always get a little bit of production out of him. He's just cheap. You want him at second. Astros bats, Mariners bats. Assuming 5 innings are on the board, Ryan Gusto over Emerson Hancock. But really, it's probably neither of these pitchers, if we're being honest. Somehow there are 4 games to go. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. 5:25. We are past the 2-hour mark, I believe, but we're getting through. This show could have been longer. See what you guys are talking about in chat. Cub says, I think you were trying to remember you wanted to say much gusto. Mucho gusto. Love it. Royce Lewis, $3,200 on DK. Lone Wolf is calling out. Yeah, that is cheap for Royce Lewis. Larry says we end at 6:15. We might. I don't want to. That's not what I'm targeting. I got to get the site updated for one, and I got to get the basketball and hockey projections up there. Those are 8 o'clock starts at least, though. Miles Michaelis is a target for Diamondbacks bats. I don't think there's any two ways about it. 448 implied total. I feel like that ought to be a little bit higher going up against a pitcher with a 14.2% strikeout rate. He hasn't allowed many home runs, but he's allowed a boatload of premium contact. 9.6% barrels, 42.5% hard hits, 89 and change miles an hour of exit velo on a 15.3 degree average launch. He has gotten lucky to be at 1.05% home runs so far. Last year, that was 361 on better contact numbers. The year before, 302 on similar. He's not a good pitcher. He's an innings eater potentially from time to time. 45 1/3 in 9 starts so far this season, pitching to a 3.77 ERA, but a 5.06 xFIP. This is the real number. Doesn't induce swinging strikes. CSW is pretty weak, and he's going up against one of the very best lineups in baseball. I don't think we play Miles Michaelis at any price. I'm interested in Diamondbacks bats, and I'll go you one better. I'm a little bit interested in them because I think they might come off a little bit lower owned than they ought to be in this spot. So I really like that upside. Corbin Carroll at 59.42, 15 home runs, 9 steals, 352 on base, creating runs 56% better than average. Dude's just a superstar. 17% barrels, nearly 18, 54% hard hits. Love, love, love the option against this pitcher. He's very expensive, but you can average it down immediately with some of the underpriced bats in this lineup. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with paying for him as a one-off, just as an individual upside bat against this guy who's going to allow him to make contact. It's a fantastic day to roster Corbin Carroll. Ketel Marte, you could say all those same things about him. 7 home runs, creating runs 53% better than average, carrying a 398 xWOB under that stellar 281 ISO, 13.5% barrels, 50% hard hits. Just one of the very best second base options in all of baseball on any given slate. 14.2% strikeout and walk rate. Lourdes Gurriel, 35,300. Immediately we get to a cheap bat. 5.55 in the home run model. He's hit 8 this season. He's been otherwise pretty underwhelming, but also underperforming what his actual talent is. 223, 267. Even with a substandard 314 xWOBA, those numbers should come up just based on that. And we know that this is a guy who can hit 270 over a full season. 207 ISO, just an 87 WRC plus. Medium quality contact, but 8.9% barrels on just 13.3% strikeouts is definitely appealing. And when you can throw, look at this trio of low strikeout rates. And then Corbin Carroll at 24.9 was a 19% strikeout guy the last 2 years. So you're probably in reality talking about 4 guys to lead off that are under 20% strikeout guys against a guy who can't even find 15% strikeouts. Just going to be so many balls in play right out of the gate here. Josh Naylor at 43.31. He's slashing 290, 356, 435. I don't really care that much about the dip in actual power output given the 5 home run total, the 145 ISO. He's creating runs at a very solid clip. He doesn't strike out. He draws walks. He makes a lot of things happen out there. He's very cheap for his talent, and the home runs could come roaring back. There's no reason to believe, especially against a pitcher like this in this ballpark, that Josh Naylor couldn't go deep. Eugenio Suarez can go deep against anybody. 14 home runs on the board at 287 ISO. He's generally bad at everything else, but he hits a lot of home runs and he drives the ball like crazy. 15.9% barrels, 53% hard hits. 3,400 on FanDuel is correct. 4,200 on DraftKings is too cheap. They're paying more attention to the zeros rather than the monster scores. FanDuel's got it the right way around. Pavin Smith at just 39, considering the 13.6% barrels, the 44% hard hits, 4 home runs, a 291, 408, 480 slash line, a 341 xWOBA, over 152 plate appearances. He's creating runs 50% better than average via WRC+. He's been absolutely tremendous, and this is Pavin Smith kind of fulfilling his potential. It might be like the highest end version of him fulfilling his potential. I do expect he cools over time, but he is supposed to be a good hitter like this. He's finally just getting a regular opportunity. Geraldo Perdomo, 44.39, ridiculously high priced on FanDuel. That makes him downright unusable on FanDuel, considering he's hitting 7th now. 44 on DraftKings is up there, but it's a little bit more user friendly. He's been terrific. He's getting on at a 402 clip. He's creating runs 45% better than average. He's driving the ball. He's stolen 11 bases. He's phenomenal from the bottom of the lineup, typically when he's hitting 9th and when he was cheap and nobody was going there. You're paying a monster tax on FanDuel and an above average tax on DraftKings. Let's call it a tariff. You're paying some heavy tariffs on Geraldo Perdomo for 211 plate appearances that have already happened. So just bear that in mind. It makes him really difficult to play at those high prices, but he is very, very good. Has always been good at getting to first base. Alek Thomas having a decent year, playable piece, but a mix and match guy. And then Jose Herrera, just kind of a backup catcher. Zach Gallen is on the board, 8,800, 9,300. He's nobody's favorite pitcher to go to, but he does have a 24.3% strikeout rate, 9.8% swinging strikes, 28% CSW. Could honestly be a little bit higher. He's given up a 4+% home run on a lot of premium contact. He's extremely vulnerable. It's a not good, but not terrible Cardinals lineup. Normally, I'm talking about targeting them. Gallen is shaky enough on average that I don't love it, but I think given the nature of this pitching slate, given that he's slightly underpriced compared to the very top of the board with a not completely dissimilar ceiling outside of like the Chris Sales of the world as like your second tier of top end pitchers, he's fine. It's a gettable Cards team, but they're pulling a 4.12 implied total for a reason. That, you know, you'd want that below 3 when you're enthused about a pitcher at these prices. Gallen's just okay. Lars Nootbaar at 4,800 is kind of high priced on DraftKings. 3,000 on FanDuel. He's hit 7 home runs. He's stolen 4 bases. He's their best bat probably, or one of their better bats. But I don't really see the justification in pricing him up that much on DraftKings. 3,000 on FanDuel. Those aren't completely dissimilar prices, but it's a little bit more appealing. 356 xWOB under a 356 on base, creating runs 17% better than average. He's fine. It's a decent lefty to start off a Cardinal stack with. I could see him succeeding here. 9.6% barrels, 51% hard hits, right in line with where he was last year. Again, Lars Nootbaar is good. I just feel like he's gotten up there in price. Mason Wynn at 38.29, mix and match caliber so far this season, 259, 344, 410. He is getting on base. He is creating runs, but his individual upside's been a little bit clipped over 160. Last year, he had 15 home runs, stole 11 bags and 637, 148 ISO, 103 WRC+. So then the run creation number's up. The on base is up year over year. Actually, that home run pace is technically up a little bit. It's been okay. Difficult to justify, though. 6.7% barrels is an increase from last year, so are the hard hits. Just on a team that we don't love going to against an okay enough pitcher. He's just cheap, but he's more mix and matchy, in my opinion. Brendan Donovan at 46 is very expensive. Again, another player just paying a tax on these 208 plate appearances that already happened. 323, 377, 455. Yeah, all right, fine. But we've seen Brendan Donovan. We've chased him for a while for, good contact, the ability to get on base and create runs. But this is very much the hitter that Brendan Donovan is. It's still a good 115 WRC plus from a guy when he's not expensive. 14 home runs is not bad. 140 ISO though, 342 on base. Scores runs, creates some scoring events, but he's not a 323, 377, 455 hitter. The 3 home runs are not inaccurate, but it's just not going to be sustained over time. So I think you're paying a little bit too much here. 3,000 on FanDuel, at least you get multi-position for it. Wilson Contreras at 4,000 is reasonable, but again, diminished somewhat by the first base positioning, but he's very cheap now. And his barrels and hard hits are kind of back in line with where they're supposed to be. Strikeouts are down a little bit. Walks are also significantly down. That's something to watch as far as his on base, but he's getting on with that at a 332 clip. So there's some good in here. 363 xWOB is encouraging. I think at 4,000, the positional change there where he's not a catcher anymore is kind of paid for now in that cheap price. So you do get upside out of that. He's fine. Ivan Herrera at 5,000, their most expensive bat, is a little silly. He's at 5 home runs, slashing 417, 486, 767. If you believe that's going to continue, I have a bridge to sell you. But he is a reasonably highly regarded prospect. I don't think the bat on ball is completely out of line. 16% barrels feels high, but 46% hard hits is probably about right. He's low strikeout. He's fairly high walk. He's a very playable piece, but again, he's probably priced up a little too high. You can average it down if you're putting him in stacks, but as an individual, not all that appealing. Nolan Arenado, 39-27, hit his 5th home run the other day. 295 xWOB is the real number. 93 WRC plus is real. 242, 313, 382. There's really not much to see here anymore. Low strikeout, medium walk rate. At least you get that, but it's difficult. He's very cheap now, but he's not the old Nolan Arenado that you might remember. Alec Burleson, Pedro Pages, Victor Scott, mix and match pieces galore. Burleson's the best talent in that group. 291, 343, 425, 4 homers, 3 steals this year, creating runs at a very positive clip. Hits the ball fairly hard. Never a big barrel rate, but around 40% hard hits each of the last few years. Low strikeout, low walk. So a lot of decent quality contact. Lefty bat to throw at a mediocre righty as well. Pages is just a backup catcher, and Victor Scott is very, very fast. He needs to get on base, 13 steals with a 349 on base. He's been doing his job. He's not an uninteresting option from down lineup as a wraparound piece, but I don't know how much I really rely on that on base being real. 24.4% strikeouts, but 9.9% walks. That's up from 3.9 last year. That's what he needs to be doing. But last year he was 179, 219, 283 over his 155 chances. The truth's probably somewhere in the middle. So I think, again, you're kind of, it's not like he's high priced, but you're kind of just paying for things he's already done in those 172. Give me another 100 plate appearances of 349. Then maybe we'll be more excited about the wraparound. Diamondbacks bats. Zach Gallen. Cardinals bats. For me, it's no Miles Michaelis. I really don't see it even at 68 on DraftKings. Clarky Schmidt is on the board. It's Coors Field, I know, but it's the worst lineup in baseball right now. I do still continue to think that some of these Rockies kids are interesting given the way that they can connect with the ball from time to time, but it's been difficult to justify, and they've just been awful all season long. So even in their very appealing home ballpark, I think you could chase some cheap Clark Schmidt. 7,200 is the right price on DraftKings to do it. You saw where he was ranked on the board. Definitely playable from, where was he? Right there. So that is at 1,000 cheaper than Kikuchi, a pretty appealing SP2 option. I don't think you'd be totally nuts to go a few lineups if you're building a bunch of that and get a little bit double barrel cheap, $7,700 average. You're taking a really shaky pitcher with a lot of upside on the right day against one of the worst lineups in baseball, and an average pitcher against one of the worst lineups in baseball, but at the worst pitching park in baseball. You're doing it really cheap at $7,700 a piece on DraftKings. So there's viability in that two-man combination. Yanks lineup just dropped. Perfect. Ben Rice is in the lineup. That's good. Helps the Yankees power upside. So you can see Mr. Judge sitting here at 21.43 in your home run model. Kind of appealing. We do get now Ben Rice, whatever the update was, kick goalie up above the magic number for home runs. You got a lot of guys lingering around the magic number outside of the two in the bottom of the lineup, and I wouldn't rule out DJ LeMahieu either. Not a bad day to roster Yankees with a 7.3 implied total against Tanner Gordon. But continuing on with the Clark Schmidt thing. So on DraftKings or on FanDuel, you just don't want it. 94 is just silly, stupid pricing. 22.1% strikeouts. Too many walks so far in his return to action. It's just 6 starts, 32 2/3. 4.41 ERA with a 4.58 xFIP. The numbers haven't been stellar, but a 12% swinging strike rate definitely plays against this free swinging bunch. A 30% CSW, same deal. He's given up 3.68% home runs, but it hasn't really come on premium contact. Just a few fly balls in there. Curious to see how many of those came at Yankee Stadium so far. 2 at Seattle, actually. 2 at Cleveland. So it was really just the home runs have come in 2 bad outings A 5-run day in Cleveland. He gave up 2 homers, struck out 7, walked 3, but only went 4 innings, 7 hits allowed. And then a 2-home-run day, only allowed 3 earned on 3 hits over 6 innings at Seattle, but gave up 2 homers there. 6 strikeouts, 2 walks. Perfectly serviceable start. If you got that today at 72 on DraftKings, you'd be all right with it. You want more strikeouts against the Rockies here, but very much on the board there and somewhat appealing, honestly. Just ignore where this game is being played. This is dumb. And then Tanner Gordon, you just absolutely want no part of. There is nothing here to justify it, and there's everything here to say don't go to it. Trent Grisham in the leadoff spot again for the New York Yankees, 5,400, 3,700. You're paying not only a Coors Field tax, you're also paying a 151 very good plate appearances tax with Trent Grisham. I do think he's on the board. It's difficult to justify his talent at these prices outside of the matchup, the ballpark, the lineup, the total, et cetera, et cetera. So very much rising tide lifts all boats with Trent Grisham, but he's been undeniably good. 12 home runs on the board, getting on at a ridiculous clip. 298 ISO, a 413 xWOBA that flies in defiance of anything bad I have to say about the player. 11.9% barrels, 11.8 the last 2 seasons. So not completely surprising to see an outburst of power. It's just, what do the next 150 plate appearances look like? What do the 150 after that look like? I'm still betting on the downside to eventually be revealed, but I'm less and less encouraged day by day with that bet. Judge at 7,000 on DraftKings, more expensive than some of the pitchers on the slate. 5,300 on FanDuel, slashing 396. We're down below 400 after yesterday. That should probably, with the Coors Field Series, jump back above 400. 396, 486, 743, a 348 ISO, 240. He's creating runs 140% better than average. 16 homers on the board. He's ridiculous. Ben Rice, 56.37, another player. You're paying some Coors tax. You're paying some previous performance tax there. He's hit 10 homers. He's making phenomenal contact, 19.4% barrels, 58.3% hard hits. He's a non-threatening pitcher. He's not likely to strike him out. Doesn't really walk anybody, but doesn't really strike anybody out in his 1 start, his 6 1/3. I guess I shouldn't say doesn't. I should say didn't. He gave up 4 earned runs, but 7 runs overall on 9 hits in that game. Went 6 1/3 against the very good Detroit Tigers here in Coors Field. Struck out 4, walked 1 in that one. In the minor leagues, we have a pair of 6 strikeout games, and then every other game is 3 or fewer strikeouts across his 8 minor league starts this year in the PCL. A lot of runs in basically every one of those starts. Home run problems in basically every one of those starts. PCL can do that to you, but I really don't think there's anything here with Tanner Gordon. It just pushes contact and upside for premium contact toward this ludicrously hard-hitting Yankees lineup. Paul Goldschmidt having a killer year, 337, 392, 481. The power's been down, but again, as I've said multiple times, if he's not going to strike out, draw some walks, get on base, be just a really good hitter in the middle of the lineup who can provide power from time to time, I'm fine with that. It's working right now. 148 WRC plus. He's still barreling the ball at a 9.3% clip, so it wouldn't be at all surprising to see some power come back. Jason Dominguez at 5,000, 9.6% barrels, 53.2% hard hits out of him. When you get him on the left side against a righty, he's much, much better. 6 home runs on the board, 4 stolen bases. I expect those numbers to climb. Getting on base at a 333 clip, not a bad option, but very expensive, obviously. Anthony Volpe, same deal. Very expensive on both sides because Coors Field matchup, etc., but very playable. 10.2% barrels, 48.4% hard hits, 6 homers, 7 steals. Good for counting stats, not at all reliable. Not what I would call a good hitter, but definitely realistic power, realistic for premium contact, and those counting stats just kind of stare you in the face. As one of the less popular Yankees most slates, you can probably rely on him being a little bit under-owned compared to some of the other Yankees, but he's going to be very, very popular here. Austin Wells, 49.34. At least we got somebody below 5,000 among their good players. Wells, he's got 8 home runs on the board. He's slashing just 200, 269, 443, but a 243 ISO. 12% barrels, 47.2% hard hits from the left side against a bad righty in Coors Field. That is super appealing. As a one-off at 49, that's playable, but he's going to be popular. 34 is pricey on FanDuel, but worth chasing. And then DJ is just kind of interesting. 3,800, 2,800. It's only been 21 plate appearances. What we're chasing with DJ is a return to high-quality contact. So far, 6.7% barrels, 66.7% hard hits, and what is a handful of batted ball events. He's hit 1 home run. He was formerly competitive for batting titles year in, year out. He was formerly excellent at getting to first base and hit for mid-board type power. Some of that I think is still in here. He's going to be low strikeout, reasonably high walk. At worst, I think he's perfectly functional for a Coors Field game, and he's cheap, so he helps you average down slightly. Jorby Vivas is not really good right now. 182, 270, 303. His low strikeout rate from the minors has not appeared. His high walk rate kind of has in the small sample over 39 plate appearances. What you get out of him is the opportunity for a batted ball in Coors Field to maybe find the ground, get him to first ahead of the top of the lineup with Trent Grisham, Aaron Judge, etc. So as a correlated scoring guy to help average down the price at second base, he's on the board, but he's not appealing. Easily the least appealing hitter probably in all of Coors Field today. Like if I could go, you'd have to do the 2-man there from the bottom to average anything down. And then it would be, for me, probably one. Oh man, we got too many first basemen here. That's challenging also. Double booking first base there and then first, second, third doesn't really help because I don't really want Vivas at third. I guess we could get away with DJ at first, but then we can't use either of these guys. Yeah, it's challenging to average anything down here. Let's just see what the actual price average would look like. So we'll go those two outfielders. You know what? Let's use Wells as well. We'll go 3 from the bottom back around to the top 2. That gets me under 5,000. 4,880, so 4,900 a piece at Coors. I get Grisham. I get Judge, which is the more important part. You got to sacrifice all of the middle of the lineup, but you do get a hard-hitting catcher. You get the idea of success, and this is the ballpark in which most of DJ LeMahieu's career success came. And then, kind of a soft spot in Jorby Vivas, admittedly, but at least it brings our pricing down a little. That's the most affordable way to roster that team. The positional conflicts are painful for that, though. On FanDuel, just off the top, your 4-man average is 41.25. It's high, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. Rockies bats against Schmidt, given the mid-force total, 437, definitely in play. Jordan Beck's been really good, 4,800, 3,500, 8 home runs, 6 stolen bases. The numbers in the slash line are coming down a little bit, but the premium contact has been very real, 16.5% barrels, 279 ISO at 355 xwOBA. One of their more successful options, 4,100, 3,400 for Ezekiel Tovar at shortstop. Considering the contact is not bad, 9.5% barrels, 45.9% hard hits. What might burn him is Clark Schmidt's ability to miss bats because he is a aggressive free swinger. So far this year, that's cut down 28.8 on the strikeouts, cut down to 17.5%. I don't know what his pitch-by-pitch whiff rate is, but he set a record for whiffs last year. Hunter Goodman at 4,600, 3,400 has power galore. 7 home runs on the board, slashing 282, 332, 470 at 307 xwOBA. Kind of belies what I just said and kind of tells us that some of those numbers will trend downward, but the power is certainly real. 9.6% barrels, 48.5% hard hits. Those numbers probably go up over time, or at least the barrels probably do. Ryan McMahon, 12% barrels. Brenton Doyle, 12.9. Mickey Moniak at just 8%, but a 49% hard hit rate. You do get high caliber bat on ball from some of these players, like I said at the beginning. But those 3 players are slashing 207, 328, 361, 219, 282, 348, and 221, 270, 382. That's where your problem is. 6 home runs, 4 home runs, and 3 home runs apiece. So they have fewer home runs collectively than Aaron Judge has on his own. Hell, they have only 1 home run more than Trent Grisham has on his own. So it's a little difficult to justify. 83, 63, and 63, that averages to a 70 WRC plus for the 3-man. I do think there's talent in Mickey Moniak. I do think there's talent in Brenton Doyle, and we kind of know what Ryan McMahon is. He's probably going to get traded out of here and then fail for whoever trades for him, but he's there. Kyle Farmer at 35.29, no more than a mix and match piece, but he's always low owned. He's playable at second base. He's cheap. He's a way to get to a Coors Field bat as a one-off at second with a little bit of upside for the oddball home run. Not at all reliable for that. Not something that you truly want to chase outside of just the fact that nobody really does it. So when you get it, he's low owned. Nick Martini, Adil Amador, very unappealing in the bottom 2 spots. Yankees bats, Yankees bats, Yankees bats, and then like 10 more times Yankees bats, and then a few Clark Schmidt shares, but only on DraftKings, and really nothing from the Rockies outside of maybe some hedge stacks if you roster a lot of Schmitty, or if you want to throw a couple oddball Rocky stacks in there, it's fine, but they're lower priority by a pretty wide margin. Marlins and the Angels. All right. Angels lineup is in. We've talked in at least oblique angles about Yusei Kikuchi and his upside so far for this slate. Let's get into some numbers. 21.3% strikeouts, 11.1% walks. Neither of those numbers is where we want them. The walks have always been an issue with this pitcher. When he's been good over the last couple of seasons, he's cut walk. 6.9% 2 years ago, 6% last year. Those were with a 25.9% strikeout rate in 23 and a 28% strikeout rate last year. So obviously a different pitcher those 2 seasons than he was so far this year. This year's version of him looks more concerningly like the old version of him from a few years back with fewer strikeouts, which is very problematic. He hasn't been missing bats as reliably. 9.3% swinging, down from 12.8, 12.2, and 13.3 the last 3 years. The CSW is not too far off the mark. 27, mid-27s over here, 29.7 and a nice jump up last year, but back down to 26.6 so far this year. So he's throwing fewer strikes. I think that some of that comes with adjustment. He added I want to say sweeper this year that maybe is missing the zone a little bit on him and accounting for some of that. I haven't looked through pitch by pitch. 3.50 ERA is fine, but a 4.42 xFIP is probably the honest number. He's given up plenty of barrels, plenty of hard hits, and too much exit velo. Hasn't killed him. 2.98% home runs for this pitcher is actually a reasonable number. Last year, 3.40 in his improvement, 3.86 the year before that, but 5.07 several years ago, 4+ a couple seasons before that. Went from being a totally unreliable home run target in DFS to being a more reliable upside strikeout pitcher who would occasionally completely burn you over the last few seasons. Now we're kind of caught in between. We get the benefit of facing the Marlins for just 8,200, 8,800. They're not completely inept, but where they get most of their quality is from the left side. So I think that works to Kikuchi's advantage here. It should be a very good Yusei Kikuchi start. Every time he should be something, he's generally the opposite. So keep that in mind. But with this projected version of the lineup, the only lefty they have in there is Jesus Sanchez, who is very good individually, but has struggled over 123 plate appearances to find any kind of consistency. 88 WRC plus, 2 homers, 5 steals, 333 on base is good, but underwhelming is ISO compared to his typical contact. His premium contact numbers are down. His home run pace is down a little bit. 348 xWOBA tells us some things should normalize. He was a 12.2% barrels hitter the last couple seasons. Pretty premium hard hit rates. Just loses time to health every season. But lefty here against a quality enough lefty. Don't really like it and take some of the threat out of this lineup. Otto Lopez in the leadoff role if that's where you find him. At best, a mix and match guy. 225, 290, 342. That's who Otto Lopez is. 357 xWOBA kind of stands out underneath that. Maybe does improve around the edges. 27.5% hard hits doesn't really tell me that story. He's low strikeout, fairly high walk. He's got a couple of attributes in there, but not an appealing bat and certainly no threat. Agustin Ramirez is a threat. 12% barrels, 52% hard hits. Their best right-handed bat, easily. 245, 311, 543 with 6 home runs in his first 103 plate appearances of his career. 298 ISO, a 355 xWOBA. The dude's been mashing since they called him up. That would be the threatening spot against Kikuchi here. And then you get mediocre options like Wagaman, like Connor Norby. Norby's barreled a bunch of balls, 41. They both have 40+% hard hit rates. 3 home runs in 174 chances for Wagaman, 82 WRC plus. Norby, 2 home runs and 108 chances, 4 steals, 306 xWOBA, 97 WRC plus. These are not threatening bats. Derek Hill, same kind of hitter. Okay enough hard hit rate in the low 40s, but 72 pretty empty plate appearances, 70 WRC plus. Nick Fortes, Ronnie Simon, Javier Sanoa. No, thank you. Just upside galore for Kikuchi. So cue the 12-run Marlins day. On the Angels side, how about Zach Neto? 8 homers, 8 steals, and 135 plate appearances. Just been on fire since his return to the lineup. 296, 341, 560, a 264 ISO, a 410 xWOBA underneath those already incredible numbers. 18% barrels, 51.7% hard hits. What a start to this guy's career. He's just a star now at shortstop. Nolan Schanuel, decent option for getting on base. 372 on base with a good slash line, 3 home runs, not much of a power bat, but a very good hit tool, a very good ability to get to first base. Wrong spot in the lineup, but we'll take it. 45 is too much for Jean Moncada on DraftKings. 29 is more appropriate on FanDuel. We've already taken our dip. We're down to 222, 337, 472, but a solid 250 ISO with 4 home runs in just 86 plate appearances, 18% barrels, 358 xWOBA based on some of that premium contact. Does it sustain? I still continue to think not, given what we've seen from this hitter over time at the major league level when we've had him healthy. But this is like, at least some of those numbers are who he was once upon a time supposed to be. There's a smidge of believability. I think within stacks, he's definitely playable going up against the corpse of Sandy Alcantara. Taylor Ward, 3,800, 3,200, 14 home runs now, mashing. 283 ISO at 347 xWOBA, 16.5% barrels, 48.9% hard hits. You get him into Jorge Soler for just 3,400 in the outfield, 2,800 in the outfield on FanDuel. Soler is down for his premium contact numbers, but in a vacuum, the 11.2% barrels, most especially, is not terrible. 40% hard hits, not terrible. Striking out a little bit more, walking a little bit less than the last few seasons. Just 6 home runs and a 166 ISO is the uncharacteristic part. No justification for it in the xWOBA. We're just hoping for a return to form for a hitter that we've known has been a premium power bat over the last few seasons. It's more hoping than necessarily believing or having good numbers to indicate it. But on the belief side of hope, let's put it that way. I don't know what that means. 3,900 for Logan O'Hoppe, 2,500 for Travis d'Arnaud, both in the lineup today. 31-23. I tell you what, given the price difference, given what will be a popularity difference with more people going to a higher price Logan O'Hoppe for the outrageous performance he's put up so far this year, give me Travis d'Arnaud. d'Arnaud is a good hitter as a backup catcher. Right now, over 69 plate appearances, just 1 home run, 200, 246, 308. I don't really care about that. We've talked about this guy a lot when he's gotten regular plate appearances the last couple of years when Sean Murphy's been out when he was playing with the Braves. 9.1% barrels and 40.9% hard hits looks a lot like these last 2 years worth of contact numbers. 30.4% strikeouts in a small sample is obviously up. Last year in 336 chances, he hit 15 homers, had a 202 ISO. The year before, 11 in 292 with a 172 ISO. Year before that, 18 in a full, more complete season, 426 plate appearances, 205 ISO. Dude has always been able to hit for power. So for 2,500, for 2,300 on a team we're already just kind of homer hunting with anyway, give me the cheaper guy with similar abilities. Logan O'Hoppe's outperformed him in every turn this year, but everybody knows that, and he's more expensive. 20% barrels, 51% hard hits, 14 homers, obviously super appealing. If I can have both, I would take both. Honestly, I would grab both of them ahead of Nolan Chanuel at first base and Util on FanDuel. DraftKings, you obviously can have both. Luis Rengifo, Matthew Lugo down lineup. Rengifo really disappointing so far this season. Lugo putting good bat on ball in 34 plate appearances, has delivered 3 home runs. It remains to be seen what he actually is going to be. There's also a lot of strikeouts in there, 38.2% of his 34 plate appearances so far. Mix and match pieces for cheap prices down lineup. The reason we want to attack Sandy is a 17.8% strikeout rate in his return to action, 12% walks after missing all of last season, 7.99 ERA and a 4.60 xFIP, giving up way too much premium contact so far. Stuff plus is still well above average, but right now I think he's just kind of finding himself on the mound, and they're letting him have the innings to do that. So I think he remains targetable, but I do think that at 7,700 at 8,000 on FanDuel, a small number of shares is not unjustifiable against a Angels team that comes in with a 26.7% strikeout rate for the confirmed lineup and a similar number for these same hitters from last year. Sandy Alcantara was once one of the very best pitchers in baseball. A lot of it came from depth. He was never a ultra premium strikeout pitcher. He was always a guy who could miss bats, 12.3% swinging, 12.2% swinging. But you could see 23.4% strikeouts. That's a good, not great strikeout rate. It's not an ace caliber strikeout rate. But what he gave you that season was 228 and 2/3 innings in 32 starts. He was going 7-8 innings in every single start. So the strikeout totals piled up pretty significantly. The next year, he came in, pitched to a 4.14 ERA with a 4.0 xFIP, same 12.3% swinging, but lost some innings in there, lost a couple starts, 28 starts, 184 and 2/3. Was still good for depth, but not quite as good. 19.8% strikeout rate overall was down, so that didn't total quite as high as it otherwise could have, and then got hurt, missed all of last year. So what do we come back to with Sandy? It hasn't been depth so far. 5 innings last time out, 5 2/3 the start before that, 5 innings that start before that. Just once this season, completing the 6th inning, that was against Cincinnati. Still gave up 3 earned, struck out just 4, walked 2. So kind of a challenging DFS day. Like I said at the very beginning of the show, hours and hours and hours ago, might have been yesterday. I want to be there the day that Sandy finds his form. And this could be that day with all those strikeouts in this lineup. So I don't think he's off the board, but at best, it's a 2-sided scenario, and I probably prefer Angels bats. So this one probably goes Yusei Kikuchi, Angels bats, Sandy darts. Honestly, if you wanted to throw a couple Marlins darts, it wouldn't be the craziest idea. They're not good. There's really no faith in that option coming through. But just knowing that there's big downside with Kikuchi on the wrong day for him, you could get away with a couple stacks of Marlins. Not the worst day for them. Last game of the day, 6:01 on your clock. We are going to fly through this one, and then we are going to punch out without a long-winded goodbye because I got to get the site updated before the slate actually starts. Zach Wheeler checking in with a 32.8% strikeout rate against just a 4.9% walk. One of the better strikeout to walk ratios you'll ever see. 2.67 ERA with a 2.55 xFIP, 64 innings in his 10 starts. Some of the best reliable depth in baseball. 6 innings last time out, shutout ball, 3 hitter, 6 strikeouts. Start before that, 7. Start before that, 7. Start before that one, pitched into the 7th. Gave up 2 runs at most in his last 6 starts. 4-run game and a 5-run game were the only 2 downside starts. Still went 6 innings in the 4-run game, 5 1/3 in the 5-run game. Those were his mediocre outings, but every time out, you're getting 6 innings plus. Love the upside for a quality start. Even in this ballpark against an A's lineup that I do consider to be good, Zach Wheeler's on another level. 11,000 on both sites. Happy to pay for it. You do have other options, but it is a thinner than it looks pitching slate overall. He's got a lot of win bonus upside on his side with a 5.57 implied total for his excellent first place lineup, drawing down against Jeffrey Springs, who is incredibly gettable. 3.91 ERA, but a 4.85 xFIP for Springs. Sub 20% strikeout rate, almost sub 18%. 9.3% walks, too many. He does induce a 10.4% swinging strike rate. Maybe he punches out a couple of these Phillies, but several of these guys are very low strikeout. Everybody in this lineup can draw a walk. Most of these hitters have some pretty significant power upside. He's allowed a 3.11% home run. It's come on 9.2% barrels and a nearly 20-degree average launch. This is what I'm looking for when I'm focused on home runs with this team. 34.4% hard hits, 87.7 miles an hour of exit velo. Nothing special there, but the combination of the power that these guys on their own possess, the frequency of barrels and launch that he's providing, and this ballpark should speak to the Phillies' power upside and definitely justifies that high Phillies total. So Zach Wheeler very much on the board, and then Trey Turner at 6,000, 3,400. Let's see, do we have this lineup? We don't. We do have the A's. Trey Turner at those prices remains a star caliber option. 34 on FanDuel is cheap. 6,000. I didn't think that through as I was saying it. 6,000 is back up where it ought to be on DraftKings. 303, 358, 414 from Turner. 12 steals, creating around 17% better than average. It's Trey Turner. They are priced up a little bit in the top 3 for this ballpark, but easy to justify and not inappropriate in any ballpark to honestly have those 3 hitters priced like that. Bryce Harper at 62.38 across sites, 9.90 in the home run model, 8 homers, 8 steals on the season, getting on at a 379 clip. It's Bryce Harper. He's an absolute killer against this pitcher. Love the upside. Kyle Schwarber leads the league in lefty-lefty home runs or home runs against lefties, period. And he is lefty-lefty. So they've all come against same-handed pitching. He's just phenomenal. 12.83 in the home run model, 59.1% hard hits, 15.9% barrels, 17 homers on the season, and a good shot at driving that up by at least 1 tonight, maybe 2. 444 xWOBA supporting his 317 ISO. You get really cheap. They did put a tax on the top 3 guys, but they kind of forgot to do it to everybody else. Nicky Castellanos for 44, JT Realmuto for 4,000 when he's barreling the ball 12.4% of the time with a 46% hard hit rate. Yes. Enthusiastic, yes. He's hit 5 home runs. He's stolen 4 bags. 341 xWOBA tells us that the rest of the slash line should go up. The ISO should go up. The totals for counting stats should go up. Alec Bohm at just 4,000, 2,700 at the corners. Love the option. Slashing 264, 303, 363. He's better than that. 342 xWOBA tells us he's better than that. 48% hard hits. The barrel rate is technically up. He doesn't strike out. He doesn't really draw walks. So you're just buying cheap, premium contact and a lot of it. Love the option. Not the best home run hitter, but in this ballpark against this pitcher, there's upside galore in Alec Bohm. And Mundo Sosa at 41-26, very playable. 67 excellent plate appearances so far this year. Last year over 274, he was all right. Hit 7 homers, stole 7 bases, created runs 3% better than average. Year before that, 10 homers, 300 plate appearances. Not bad for a part-time player. Weston Wilson at 28-24 put good bat on ball. 18.2% barrels, 54% hard hits over 20 plate appearances so far. He's got a home run on the board. Last year he hit 3 while slashing 284, 347, 489 in a 98 plate appearance cup of coffee, 205 ISO. That's not significant, but it's also not nothing. And then Johan Rojas holds down a decent spot in the bottom of the lineup. He can get on base, steal you a base, create a little run scoring situation. Not a big hitter, but playable for 34. I'd probably rather have Weston Wilson at 28, but mix and match at worst with Rojas. The ability to go 3-man, catcher, and then I'll just take Bohm's 4,000. It's still pretty high. That's 5,300 apiece. I mean, these guys in the 6s is rough. So you do need one of the bottom bats. So let's go with Wilson, the 3-man, and the catcher. Gets me close to 5,000, 51. You ultimately probably have to sacrifice one of the top end bats in a full 5-man to really make it work as effectively as you'd want. But there's also nothing wrong with grabbing a cheap 3-man right there for 41 apiece, 42 technically. Nick Castellanos, JT Realmuto, Alec Bohm in this ballpark against this pitcher for 4,000 and change apiece is not a bad 3-man on DraftKings. And then obviously you could grab one of those guys, stretch it to a 4 if you want to go that route. If you grab 2 of those guys in all 3, then you're at just under 5,000, 49.80 a piece, which is more playable. So there are ways to get there for the full 5-man, but it's obviously not ideal today. You're going to go like those 3 and these 2. That gets you down for a 5-man. That gets you to 37.20, but it's obviously not the 5 hitters you'd most want from this lineup. But there are ways to get there. Maybe a little bit more user-friendly on FanDuel. What does that average to? 35. Meh. Competitive with the other top teams on the board at worst. A's bats with a 4-run implied total going up against Wheeler. It's difficult to justify. They are cheap. They do get the benefit of the ballpark. They've got a surging Nick Kurtz down in the 7 spot today, up to 4 home runs. 182 ISO, 12.3% barrels, and 45.6% hard hits, kind of stepping into his potential after 99 plate appearances now. It took him a minute, but he's only 27 on both sides at first base. Super playable. It's just the Zach Wheeler of it that is kind of challenging for any of his upside to come through. We probably see Wheeler exploit that 34.3% strikeout rate. It's probably also the same for like Lawrence Butler, nearly 25% strikeouts despite his good contact abilities. He's kind of underperformed overall this season, 232, 295, 405. So against one of the very best pitchers in baseball, it's difficult to believe that he finds form today. Jacob Wilson is one of the better hitters in baseball right now, 342, 382, 476. He's hit 5 home runs that I wasn't really expecting any power from him, so that's a bonus. 4 stolen bases, getting on at a ludicrously good clip at 382, creating runs 47% better than average. The table setter for Tyler Soderstrom, Brent Rooker, Shea Langoliers, and the power bats in this lineup. Not a one of those guys is priced above $5,000. $4,800 Brent Rooker is the most expensive on DraftKings. $3,032, $33 for that trio, and then $29 for Langoliers. Not terrible as far as the pricing, but again, just an atrocious matchup drawn against Wheeler. Rooker's got 11 home runs. Soderstrom's hit 10, slashing 281, 346, 485. Even with the decline, he's maintained good numbers. Langoliers, 10.8% barrels, 45.3% hard hits. You can always buy cheap catcher power with him. 9 home runs on the board at 200 ISO on the nose. Not a bad option against most other pitchers, but not against Zach Wheeler. Miguel Andujar, you're just buying a good hit tool, 312, 340, 435. Surprisingly strong start to the season. Just striking out 11.6% of the time. Found a full-time job here. We'll see if he can keep it over time. But right now, he's one of the more appealing bats. Like if you're determined to target Zach Wheeler, at least use the 2 good hit tool guys and then the power bats. So he's on the board for that, but it is just not a day to really consider the A's all that much. Luis Urias down lineup, 33-26, and then Denzel Clark making his debut. Denzel Clark, to finish the show, is right-handed. Look at him. He might not have a higher point in his entire baseball career than right now. We will see. At the dead min, just a 2.36 coming through in the home run model. Pretty low end, bottom of the lineup player kind of projections. We're going to have to go to the results here. Ooh, that's an ugly hit tool. A lot of power, some speed. He is one of their more highly regarded prospects organizationally. In AAA so far this season, 133 plate appearances, he had hit 0 home runs and stolen 7 bags while slashing 286, 436, 419, just a 133 ISO. But that defies what his profile is. He's profiled as a power hitter. 269, 339, 445 last year, a 176 ISO with 13 homers over 478 AA plate appearances, 36 stolen bases. 15 homers, 30 steals, 248, 365, 469 the year before that, mostly at high A. Then a mix of A ball and high A. It's kind of weird. His traditional scouting report doesn't really jibe with any of his minor league numbers outside of the speed. Maybe it's just developing power. They do have his game power pretty low and then raw power significantly high. So maybe it's just the expectation of development of power. He's already 25, though. I think if it was going to get there, we probably would have seen it. He's the dead man. If you choose to attack Zach Wheeler with a probably AAA player in his major league debut, then I wish you luck. And at least you get him at the min price. Maybe he gets on, steals you a base, and you get 6 points from him. With that in mind, you guys, let me punch out of here. It is 6:12. Larry's going to be right, as he says. I got to get the site updated. I got to get basketball projections done. I got to get hockey projections done. So I'm going to thank you guys for all the time. We nearly did a 3-hour show today. Monster slate with a lot of ins and outs. But let me get out of here. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share the results in Discord when you do. Discord link is down there. It's always free in Discord. Under $1 a day to subscribe for the projections over at rotoscouts.com. Give our guys over at acemine.io a little bit of love. Promo code rotoscouts all in caps. Still gets you 20% off your first month over there. And with that in mind, guys, have great weekends. We will see you back on Monday for hopefully a shorter show. Not that I don't love doing this, but time management should be a little bit better of a priority. See you guys.